The sad kitten and
This meeting, a regular meeting of the Sonoma City Council on Wednesday, September 9th, holding on a Wednesday because we had Labor Day this Monday. So happy Labor Day, and thank you to all the union members and workers who brought us weekends in general and Labor Day holiday. So we're getting it started, and Amy's joining us now. I will note that Councilmember Cook is not feeling well. So unfortunately will not be joining us for this evening's City Council. So we wish him the best. My understanding is he's fine, just feeling a bit sick. There's no cause for major alarm. But yeah, so he will not be joining. A couple notes here. So we got to do a report out on closed session if the city attorney wouldn't mind.
Council did meet in closed session for the items posted on the agenda, but took no action requiring reporting out at this time.
Beautiful. All right. And then we'll move on and do the Pledge of Allegiance, if we could. Like it's been a long time since we had one of these, but the days go slow now. All right. We'll go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation
Under God,
indivisible, liberty and
justice for all.
Beautiful. All right. So just explaining again, we're having a virtual meeting of the Sonoma City Council in accordance with the emergency ordinance allowing for this by Governor Gavin Newsom. We will have a public comment process. It's the same kind of way, except we have no podium for you to stand at. So if you would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand virtually using the little, you can find it usually down at the end of participants or somewhere around here. Raise your hand on Zoom and we'll call on you and bring you in. If you're dialing in, you can always dial *9 and that will raise your hand for us and we'll call on you. Upon being acknowledged, just speak as you would normally do. We'll go ahead that way. You'll have 3 minutes to chat. I'll interrupt you if you're getting close, so don't be offended if I give you the 1 minute or 30-second warning. Usually we have a light that does that, but we can't do it this way. We also have the opportunity for you to do a written public comment. If you submitted those before, they'll be read by LaTanya, who does a fantastic job reading them, but we're also going to time her. She only gets 3 minutes to read your comments, so please keep those short. Rachel's being attacked by a cat, and pay no attention to this. If you may write a public comment anytime from now until the closing of the public comment on that item. So basically you can write a public comment. We'll read it. If there's an item that's coming up in the future or that's on the agenda that you didn't notice before, you could write one for that as well if you don't want to speak. There is a possibility that we could get Zoom bombed. If there's a Zoom bombing, we will shut down the meeting and try to restart. No further action will happen during that interim period. And if we can't restart, then we'll schedule the meeting to be continued at a different time. Also, to keep in mind that council members and staff are operating from their homes, as we all are. And so we are allowing staff members and members of council to turn off their camera at any time if they'd like to. A lot of people have kids or cats or other things at their home that they may not want to display on the screen. And so they will not be leaving if they turn it off. They'll stay right there engaging in the meeting, but they may turn off their screen. If they do leave, they will notify us that they're leaving the room and no longer participating in the meeting, or that they're coming back. All right, so that covers that for the most part. We'll move right along, and if we could get a roll call, I would appreciate that.
Councilmember Agrimonti,
Here?
Vice Mayor Hundley,
Here.
Councilmember Harrington,
Present.
Mayor Harvey.
Present.
Thank you.
All right. And we did the report on closed session, and we'll move on to approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda?
Second?
All right. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Agrimonti,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hundley,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Mayor Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously with Councilmember Cook absent.
All right. Awesome. Then we move on to public comments from the public. So this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda. It is recommended they keep your comments to 3 minutes or less under state law, unless otherwise permitted under the Ralph M. Brown Act. The merits of the matters presented under this item cannot be discussed or acted upon by the City Council at this time. Items appearing on the agenda, the public will be invited to make comments at that time the item comes up for council consideration. Upon being acknowledged by the mayor, please begin by stating and spelling your name. And again, I will interrupt you as you're getting closer to that 3 minute warning. I'll probably give you a 1 minute and a 30-second warning. So if we have anybody rising for a public comment, we do have Kathy King here. Awesome. So we'll bring Kathy in. And Kathy, you're live with the Sonoma City Council. We need you to unmute your microphone.
All right. Here
We
I
can
am.
hear you.
Thank you. I just want to bring up the last 3 days of heat wave and the horrendous smoke. And I know that previously we had something at the Vets Hall that really wasn't publicized that much, and there weren't a lot of people, but I think there should be something in place that when we know from the Weather Bureau that there will be 3 to 4 days of horrendous heat, that automatically something opens. I just think this is just very disheartening that people are left outside. Our seniors, our homeless, and people that don't have any air conditioning in their house. If things were publicized in the newspaper and everyone knew automatically 3 days of heat, and they automatically can go to the Vets Hall or wherever we could go. But I think something should be in place. I don't think this is over yet, given the state of the skies today. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kathy, and thanks for all the good work you do with Sonoma Overnight Support with our homeless community. Move along to the next speaker. Do you have anybody else raising their hand? Seeing no one, I'll go ahead and close closed session with the magic clap, and we'll bring it on to meeting dedications. Do you have any meeting dedications?
None for me.
We've got none. All right. We'll move on to presentations. So we do have a Celebrate Sonoma, which is a fantastic thing that we do here at the Sonoma City Council, where we celebrate people who may not otherwise. And if we could bring Karen,
Working on it.
Yeah.
Working on it now. There's
Great.
several, Mayor Harvey, that we're bringing in.
Okay, good. Great. We've got a plan here. So this is the purpose here is to acknowledge members of our community that go above and beyond and that really make up the fabric of our community. Last time we had a wonderful quilt maker. We've had skate shop owners, Cub Scout leaders, and a whole bunch of other people that have been a part of this. And it's been a fantastic way to kind of honor members of our community. And for this one, we're honoring Nora Collins, and we have Karen Collins here to kind of do the presentation and talk about the nomination of Nora and why she means so much to our town, and she surely does. So, Karen, if you'd...
Mayor Harvey, can I ask the Reverend Thomas raise his hand so I don't see him in the list?
Reverend Thomas, is
Sorry.
it Trinity Episcopal?
Was it James Thomas?
Or is it James Thomas? Reverend Thomas, if you could raise your hand so that you can be identified and we can bring you into this meeting, we'd greatly appreciate it. So I'm not sure if that's Trinity Episcopal. We got Haywood Maggie, which maybe is. Let's give it a shot.
Which one did you say? James Thomas?
No, I would guess Trinity Episcopal, and we got James Thomas raising the hand, and I don't know who Haywood Maggie is, but
Okay.
That's,
Trinity
That's
Episcopal.
Maggie Haywood. And
Maggie Haywood. Okay,
Mhm.
great. There we go.
Okay.
Perfect.
With me is Nora Collins, and this is Reverend Jim.
Oh, beautiful. All right, we're ready to go. Here we go.
Okay, I think we're good then. I think we have everyone. Karen will need to mute her, or unmute herself and turn on her video.
Yeah. Look at this. We got a
Are
whole
you on there,
selection.
Nora? I see. Here, Nora, right here. Wave at him. All right, this is Nora Collins.
Hi, Nora.
Hey,
Welcome.
Okay. Now, can you hear me, Karen?
Yes.
Okay. Before we start, I'd just like to thank you, Mayor, and to thank the City Council and the administration for this program, because there are so many people out there striving and doing good, and you know, so much of their work flies under the radar, and your daylighting this just gives us such a great chance to recognize them and to thank them. So good for you. Another good move by City Council. When I first heard about the program, and I think it was from Council Member Harrington, and I immediately thought of Nora and her group over at Trinity Episcopal Church, and we want to tell you why. And I think Jim is going to tell us a little bit about the background, and then we're going to give you a couple of testimonials from those who have benefited from Nora and her program. The first one will be Judy Bjorndal, and then it will be Maggie Haywood. And then I would like to read you a letter from one of my neighbors, and also from my sister-in-law, as my brother was one of the recipients of the largesse of this program. So I think, Jim, it's all yours.
All right, thank you very much. Nora has been a member of the church here since 2013. Moved here with her husband, Jerry, and she is a long history of being a good knitter, and basically came to us and said, would you all be interested in doing a program where we knitted prayer shawls to give away to those who are ill or stressed in some way. And of course, the prayer shawls are made while the people are in prayer, praying for the individual that will receive it. And it is of course, our tradition for healing is centered around prayer, and so the prayer shawl is a gift from this community, wishing them and praying for them as well. If you know, for whatever their illness or their situation may be. And Nora handles that. And I was just going to have Nora show you a couple of things that she does. If you want to just see samples of her good works.
I crochet, and this is one of our shawls.
Last year we gave away 51 shawls.
That's wonderful.
And this is a triangle that we've done.
Okay.
And we make these available all the time, and it seems that it has quieted down. Not too many people have been asking for things. I don't know whether it's because of the virus and they're not coming to the church, but we're always here and it's always available to them. And we just enjoy the messages that we get back of the people that receive them and how happy they are with them.
We take the prayer shawl when it is finished and bless it during a service, and then it is given here in the live room we have here at the church, so that people can even choose one that they like, or someone.
Can you speak into your microphone?
Yeah.
You're kind of cutting in and out there.
Okay. Anyway, we bless the prayer shawls, Harvey, and then we will give them to the person to use and to keep with them at the hospital. Sometimes, we gave one last week to a preemie little boy, and he is doing well, and the nurses have been sending pictures of us with him wrapped in the prayer shawl. So we're thrilled to death to do this kind of thing.
So is the concept to kind of wrap them in the love of the church and of the people that are praying and thinking of them?
That's right, and to know that they're being prayed for, and anyone, they may have all kinds of problems or just be ill. We get a lot of cancer patients. Like I say, we gave away 51 last year.
Wow.
And so we may we'll get things going here when people start coming out of their homes and start asking for help. So
That's wonderful.
anyway, we're tooled up for it. We're ready to go.
Ready to go. I love it. You got the needles sharpened and ready to knit.
And Nora is such a fine leader and fun to be with and dearly beloved by
You're cutting out.
congregation. As you can see, I want to say that she is 92 years old, and my wife asked me to ask her what she drinks. So,
I love it.
all right.
Judy?
Go right ahead, Karen.
Yeah, I think it's Judy's up. Judy, would you like to speak for just a minute?
Oh,
Get back to my
this
husband.
is like his such part.
Leave it right there. Everybody hear me?
Yeah.
When my husband Ron was diagnosed with ALS, he was determined, despite its grim prognosis, to appreciate and reciprocate as much joy as he could. As his symptoms progressed, that goal was immeasurably eased and aided by the unexpected gift of one of Nora's brightly colored blankets. He used that blanket every single day. You can see him on it in that photo. What a comfort it was to him. Ron eventually was unable to speak, but the man sure could laugh. Thank you, Nora.
True.
Maggie, you're up next.
You might have to unmute, Maggie.
Yeah, if you're speaking, we can't.
Unmute. I just finally saw the unmute. Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm here with my son, John, And John was one of the recipients of Nora's blankets. We love the beautiful blanket that Nora made for us. Because John is unable to move his legs, his feet get cold, and the blanket has been such a warm and cozy comfort. As you can see from the picture, it is very beautiful. Are you seeing that? There it is. I see it. John moved from LA and from LA to Sonoma in 2018, and he knows how lucky he is to be here. It's the kindness of strangers and friends and people like Nora who make this community so special. A heartfelt thank you from both of us. And I want Nora to know that John and I have been saying the Serenity Prayer together almost every day since he got that blanket. So maybe that was the thank you.
Thank you.
That's a beautiful blanket.
Okay, now this is Karen again. And it's my pleasure to read a note from my neighbor, Denny Holter. And this is in behalf of her husband, Jim. And you see his picture right here with another one of the blankets. And this is a note from Denny. In 2014, my husband and I moved to Sonoma and joined Trinity Episcopal Church. One Sunday, we were touched by the blessing of a stack of blankets and prayer shawls made by Nora Collins and others in our ministry, never thinking that one day we might be beneficiaries of these wonderful gifts. In September 2015, my husband Jim was diagnosed with ALS. He's been in a power chair for several years now, and his blanket made with love and devotion covers him every day. It's truly an honor to thank Nora and her ministry for their loving and useful dedication to ease the burden for so many in need. With deep respect and love, Denny Holter. And Nora, I would just like to say that I know you're over at the church there Zooming with Jim, and I want you to stay right where you are, because when we're through, I'll be over to deliver a contribution from the always generous Holter family, augmented by donations from Judy and Maggie and me. We know that your supplies are not inexpensive, and we'd really like to help you and your group cover your costs and keep on keeping on. And finally, I would just like to read another quick note. I would like to say that I first learned about Nora from my friend Laurel Meredith, who is a member of Nora's group. And this was when my brother Kurt was diagnosed with ALS. He lived up in the Pacific Northwest, and I was always trying to think up ways I could be supportive. Laurel invited me to meet her at the church, and she showed me a stack of blankets and told me to pick one out for my brother. I did, and I actually flew up to see him with the blanket in tow. I'd like to read a note from my sister-in-law, Kurt's wife, Cindy. What a nice surprise it was when you brought your brother that comfy throw. I hope you will pass on to the wonderful ladies who took their time to make it just how much he appreciated it. He was often cold because of the long hours he was sitting in his wheelchair, and the throw worked perfectly for a nice warm-up. I'm sure the love that went into the making of this blanket also helped him. My sincere thanks, Cindy Saldine. And so I would just like to say another thank you to the kindness of Nora and her team. It's meant so much to me and to my family. In fact, this last photo, this is the photo that you see. It's the last photo I have of Kurt. He is seated in his wheelchair, tucked into his blanket. He died 2 months later, and this is the last photo that was taken of him. I know that if we had the time today, we could relate countless similar stories. Since over the years, Nora and her group have made and distributed hundreds of these blankets. So Nora, I thank you for your thank you and congratulations. And I'd just like to say I've been celebrating Nora Collins Day since I got up this morning. And I think it's back to you, Mayor.
That's so fantastic. And what a beautiful story, and what a beautiful tribute to Sonoma, and what great work you're doing, Nora, and the rest of your team. I just think it's wonderful, and it's so cool. That's one of the things I love about this is we learn about these lovely, just heartwarming things that are happening throughout our community that we wouldn't necessarily be aware of unless it was brought to us. So Karen, thank you so much for bringing this, and Nora, just it's beautiful. It's just really a sweet and warm and wonderful thing that you're doing over there, and I'm sure it makes people feel just so great, you know, in a time where they're going through a bit of a struggle. We could all use a blanket these days, I think, for sure. Sure. I'll open it up for council if council would like to make additional comments.
I just wanted to comment on your comments. It was so wonderful to hear this story, and I was just thinking during this, there's so many things we cannot count on anymore that are out of our control. And so one of the things that's nice to count on is that people are so lovely and kind and contribute so much in the town of Sonoma. And it kind of, people today were saying, you know, what is something we can be hopeful about? And I think this is one of those things. So thank you, Karen, for bringing this forward. And thank you, Nora, so much for doing this without ever seeking recognition. So.
I have a
Mr.
comment.
Mayor?
Yeah, of course. Go ahead, Rachel.
Rachel Hundley.
All right. Nora, I'm so happy that I got to hear about your project. I actually first heard it from Karen Collins as she was walking by my house earlier this week, and I got to get a preview of what I got to see today, and just seeing the smiles on the faces of the recipients of the blankets. And my family come from a line of quilters, and they have so much significance for what they mean, for the love that was put into them. And I think it is amazing the individual acts that people do for each other. And it's wonderful that we get to see what you have been doing. And happy Nora Collins Day.
Councilmember Agrimonti.
Sure, Nora, I am so excited to be able to be part of this. I crocheted until I dropped when I was much younger because I loved it so much, and you could watch television, you could watch your kids, you could do everything and crochet at the same time. So I really appreciate that art, and especially appreciate that this is from everyone's heart, this love. And it's enveloped somebody if they're not having good days. The colors, you know, I think are wonderful, and the art of it is wonderful, and you are truly a wonderful soul. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, this is very sweet, and again, just appreciate you so much and the work that you do and the love that you bring to this community. And you know, this is for fitting the people that make up the fabric, and it's kind of literally and figuratively through here. So it's really just a wonderful thing, and I appreciate it. So forever, from now until forever, September 9th will be Nora Collins Day in the city of Sonoma, and as it should be and as it always will be. And we've got a plaque for you that I believe Karen's going to come by and make sure you get. So it's all signed and it's official, and it's your day. And thank you so much for the work that you do, and the best to you and your family and your whole team there, and the best to everybody that came and spoke. It's a very heartwarming, wonderful story. Thank you.
And all of you. Take good care of that kitty.
Will do. Take care. Bye, guys. Thank you. Oh, these things, this one almost brought a tear to my eyes, that one. That was good. That was sweet. I needed that today. We all needed that today. All right. So we'll give it another moment and get everybody kind of shifted here. It always takes a second. But we're moving on to item 3.2. Fish, or Friends in Sonoma Helping, another heartwarming story. Fish report on the rental assistance program and city sponsorship. And we had Sandy in here, but she just got bumped out. I don't see her in the attendees list anymore. We get Sandy Piotr in here.
Hey, Rebecca, I just got bumped out too and have to rejoin on my computer to show the projector. So if you wait just a minute, council.
While we're figuring this out, Mr. Mayor, I have a work conflict at 7 p.m. that I couldn't reschedule today, unfortunately. So if I might disappear during this presentation, depending on how long it lasts, but my intent is to come back and it's all on Zoom. So that's where I will go if I disappear.
Good. The commutes are easier now. Good. Okay, so we'll have you back as soon as you can, and I appreciate you letting us know. Understand it's tough to do it on Wednesdays when normally we're used to Mondays. So
Wednesday threw me off.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. It just said we brought her in, but
I saw
said she was rejoining.
And then she dropped out.
Yeah, I did it again, and it said she was being brought in as a panelist, but
she's right here. I see her on the attendees list now.
Okay, trying it one more time.
Right,
we'll be rejoining the webinar as a panelist. I don't understand why it's not allowing her to come in.
Well,
it keeps telling me she's rejoining as a panelist, but then she just goes away. Now she's not on the attendee list.
Yeah, she's in limbo land. I always say it's not a Sonoma County meeting without technical difficulties. So it's this is what we do in Sonoma County. It's not just the city. It's every meeting I've ever attended has some sort of issue. She's back in there. Does it help if she raises her hand? That shouldn't be something that affects it.
No, Latonya, do you want to try it? And now she's gone again.
I just tried it and the exact same thing happened. It said that she was joining and then she just disappeared.
This has been, we postponed this one last time because something else was happening. I think it was kind of a similar thing, and now.
Maybe if she comes back into the attendee list, we, instead of making her a panelist, we can just allow her to speak.
That'll be fine.
I don't know if she is.
Has a PowerPoint or something, she can pass it along to.
Okay, so here's the other thing we could do too. I can see if I can get her on speaker and just, Rebecca, if you can take my computer and move me up.
I did.
To promote, then I can share the screen and we can maybe see if we can get Sandy just on cell phone.
Okay, she's here now. Oh, there she went. Okay, where did she go? Let's try this again.
I still see her.
I see her now. Let's see if she can be allowed to talk.
There she is. Okay. Yes.
Yay.
We did it, Sandy.
Okay, I'm going to hang up the phone because I'm all right.
All right.
Great. So maybe what I'm going to do, this is my video going now? Okay. So it's just a little bit of context and I'll pull up the next sheet and then let Sandy speak too. So as council knows, this was part of council's response to COVID, where you took a little over $150,000 from your housing trust fund to help do rental assistance. And Friends in Sonoma Helping, Fish, led by Sandy Pioter, was our partner in this. And so let me just go to the next slide. And this shows overall the contributions between May and July. And so Sandy, I'll let you kind of walk through this, but basically the city's contribution was about 151,000. And again, it was broken down into 3 different categories. And you can see overall the city's contribution was about 61% of Fish's contribution for those 3 months. So a large increase. So Sandy, thanks so much. I know council will want to thank you too, but if you want to kind of tell the story behind the numbers, that would be great.
Thank you, Kathy. I'd really love to. I think what this program is something that has morphed into something more and more significant. The money that you invested has really grown, in that now we have already spent over $415,000 on rental assistance, and we just changed our budget for $650,000 that we have. in our budget to help with rent. So what you have done is provided Fish with impetus, as well as this generous partnership of contributing $150,000. We did establish 3 categories, and it was really interesting because Fish had not kept this kind of data before. So one category was people who lived within the city limits, 2 people who worked within the city limits, and 3 people who worked outside of the city limits and lived outside of the city limits, but worked in the industry, the agriculture, the tourism industry. The other thing that we were able to do throughout this is we tried to, by using surnames, determine the population we were meeting their needs, and did find, which meets the picture of Sonoma Valley and those most impacted by COVID-19, that about 88% of the families we were able to help had surnames that were from the Latinx community.
Do we need the next slide? Is there another slide here?
No, there's not. This is the only slide. Thank you.
I apologize.
So thank you for being generous and for the vote of confidence that we as a volunteer organization had the underpinnings and the infrastructure to handle this kind of a significant grant. So the number of families we've helped so far has gone well above the numbers you see there. We've helped over 575 families with rental assistance, and we are gearing up to continue throughout this difficult program. We have had contributions. We've had a few more grants. We just applied for the CARES grant and are hoping that we receive that. And we want to thank the community itself, because it's not only the grants, the $150,000 from the city, but the kindness of our community members who send in their donations. Many people, when they received their $1,200 stimulus check, either divided that among a number of nonprofits or sent the whole check to Fish to help, especially with the rental program. So it has been a wonderful and easy partnership. Anytime you want to partner, we're ready to work with you. And we appreciate that, again, that vote of confidence that we could be a vessel really to get the money to the people in need. So it's been very successful. We are just thrilled to be able to come and to say thank you for your investment in the community members and seeing people through this crisis, and your support.
Thank you so much, Sandy. I really appreciate the good and hard work of running this program, and great to know how successful it's been. Do we have comments from council?
Yeah, I do have a comment. And
go ahead, Councilmember Agrimonti.
Thank you, and possibly a question. I'm just amazed, when I drive by the building on 12, I think, wow, all the hustle and bustle that takes place in there, it's just pretty amazing. And I just want to know, could you tell me, do you own that building, or through someone's generosity, they let you use that?
Yes, we do own the building, and it was about in 2002, I believe, that Fish moved from the Kearney's back porch into the new building for its food room. And we had a small building that we were able to use out on 8th Street East that then moved to the clothing room. But much of the work takes place in our homes. We're telephone based, so many people do the work from their home. Almost all of the rental work is done, from our home offices or the kitchen table.
Thank you. You brought up the Kearney home. It's interesting. I used to drive to Ursuline High School with Sister Frances, and she especially wanted to show me the area where the food was in the back of her home. So I have wonderful memories of her and wonderful memories of the stories she would share with me about Fish. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madeline.
Comment?
Yeah, of course. Please.
Oh, I'm so delighted to get this data, and also it was, I don't even know what the words are, but it was just so incredibly fortuitous that Fish had a program where we could just fund it, and it was already operationalized so that we didn't have any lag time at all. And I'm sure that for the 500 plus people who got to stay in their homes, you know, that really affected people's lives. So I feel really moved by that. And I just wanted to say, Fish really came into my, came to my attention many years ago because my dad, who I don't think had ever volunteered for anything, decided he would become a fish driver, and he drives people to their medical appointments. And I went to their picnic and I met a lot of the other drivers, and it was filled with people just like my dad who would never, ever want credit for anything. They just like being helpful. And I kind of got to know Sandy, and I was like, this is an incredible organization of the most modest but also effective people I think I've been, you know, aware of. So thank you so much for doing such good work and for putting the data together so we can get a report back on how the money was spent. And I think we're just really fortunate that we were able to provide the support in this difficult time.
Thank you, Amy.
Wonderful.
It is amazing how many people quietly participate with Fish. I find you all to be a somewhat mysterious organization because you can kind of feel your presence in so many places all over the community, but not necessarily something that you can you see people shouting about. But just wanted to thank you for all that you're doing, and to all the volunteers. And if other people out there are looking for ways to get involved in the community, Fish is a great organization to invest yourself into.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Hundley. Yeah, I super excited about the results of this program. I mean, this is a very, very difficult time, especially for workers in our community, which is one of the reasons I was strongly in support of this. And to hear, you know, over 575 families were assisted by this. Keeping people in their homes through this crisis is going to keep them healthier, going to keep them off the streets, going to keep them feeling, you know, stable. And especially for the Latino community, undocumented workers are receiving no federal benefits. And it's been extremely difficult for that community as well. So, you know, Senator, I know you've been so involved in food security, in providing food to people, rental assistance, and so much. You're such a core member of this group of people that really take care of our community, and I thank you for the great work. And just so proud that we were able to partner, and great to hear that there's additional support pouring in from the community, because it's really needed in this time for us all to take care of each other. So thank you so much for your great work. And yeah, I appreciate you coming forward today and explaining the program and how it's working. So great to hear, and great news, and great story. Appreciate it.
May I just thank you again for your partnership and your bravery to commit so much money to such an important issue as keeping people in their homes, so we don't have more for Kathy King to do. And it's just been wonderful and easy to work with you. So thank you from all of us at Fish for this wonderful partnership, and I hope we can do it again sometime.
Thank you, Sandy. I hope so too. Take care.
Thank you.
All right, we don't do public comment on presentations, is my understanding. So we'll be moving on to the consent calendar. So all items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by a single motion. There's no separate discussion of these items unless members of the council, staff, or public request specific items to be removed for separate action. At this time, the council may decide to change the order of the agenda. So do we have any questions for council? Any desire to pull any of these items off?
And from Agrimonti.
None from Agrimonti. Hundley, any from you? Harrington, from you? Anything?
None.
None from Harrington, none from Harvey either. So we'll go ahead and bring it out to public comments on this item. Any member of the public wishing to speak on the consent calendar or have an item pulled? No? Christian Callion doesn't want to make news for himself? Okay, great. We'll go ahead and close. We'll open public comment. See if we see anybody. Close public comment because I don't think I officially opened it. And we've got city manager raising her finger here. What's going on?
Just Mayor Harvey, if you would indulge me just for 2 minutes, I just want to show the pictures publicly because I think one of item 4.2 is accepting the slurry seal project, and I think there was some really smart work here done by Colleen Ferguson and our streets crew, Michelle Fajardo, and so if you just, there were some pictures within the staff report. If you would just, so one of the projects, and if Colleen is on, if she can move forward, but there was a resurfacing of Spain Street. Let me see if I can just kind of scroll down. This is the new resurfacing as you come into town along East Napa from Sonoma's Best and heading towards the Plaza. This was work done by to narrow the street with this new sign that barked at me yesterday or the other day when I said, take me down 27, 28 and made me go slower. So I think this was a very smart, inefficient, very smart, cost-effective way to slow traffic. And it really, I can feel the difference, and I've heard other people comment. So that's the project. This is kind of putting in some of the bike route signs. Again, this is the Spain Street and the resurfacing of that side of the plaza. All of this was done in the last 3 months. And then this is over by Sasserini. The paint along that section of the street really had almost disappeared. So I want to thank Colleen, who did some restructuring of some money and brought forward to council and your support to kind of take and really leverage a contractor we had to do some additional work. And so we also redid and restriped the back of City Hall for some additional parking as well. So there was a lot of creativity and effective work done. So I just want to thank the Public Works team and communicate to public that some of this was done, and thank council for your support.
Yeah, I appreciate that work a lot, and live right over on 5th Street. And so, Colleen, please, if you want to make a comment, if you got some.
Just want to appreciate Kathy for showing those photos. It's always good to see the work that's been done, and we couldn't do that without council support for moving some funds around to make that happen. So thank you to the council.
Yeah, I think it looks absolutely beautiful, especially the one right on 5th Street West. I see it almost every day, and it's like, it's so nice to have the bike lanes lit up and the center divide perfect, and the road a little smoother, and all of that is beautiful. And that one cross intersection where we've had some issues there before it's a lot brighter and shinier, so it's great. And then riding my bike out to do, if you're going to do Level Valley Loop, so it feels a lot safer on East Napa. So beautiful, great job, and thank you so much for your hard work and the hard work of Public Works. Go ahead and see if we got a motion for consent calendar.
Move to approve 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3.
Boom, and we got a second, and we're ready to go. Roll call vote. Tim Sanders.
Councilmember Agrimonti.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hundley.
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington.
Aye.
Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 401 with Councilmember Cook absent.
Wonderful. All right, moving on to item 6.1, discussion, consideration, and possible action to adopt a resolution that awards a, is that right? Yeah, that's where we're going. Awards a conditional certificate to SoSpark LLC that allows for it to make application for and obtain commercial cannabis permit to establish a retail storefront commercial cannabis facility. I'm going to turn it over to David Storm.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor. Let me see if I can share my screen. I have a very brief PowerPoint for you tonight.
Aww, thank you.
Oh.
The reason for living.
There you go.
I'm my wife.
Oh, I thought that was about cannabis. I was like, David.
All right, here we go, folks. Thank you. Can everybody see and hear me okay? All right, so at your last council meeting on August 17th, you selected Spark to operate a retail storefront commercial cannabis business in the city, and direction was given to staff to return with a resolution that memorialized that action. So tonight in your packet, we have a resolution that has an Exhibit A to it, which basically contains conditions of approval that you're attaching to that conditional certificate. So we have gone and completed the phases 1 and 2 of your evaluation process, where we conducted an RFP. We reviewed applications, had interviews. The city manager forwarded 5 recommendations to you as far as proposers moving forward. And your council, again, as I mentioned, selected 2 finalists to do site searches. And as a culmination of that effort, Spark tonight will be issued a conditional certificate. The next steps for them over the next year is they will receive their land use entitlements, the conditional use permit, and also go through the building permit process for the TIs. That will be to convert the restaurant that we saw them propose as their location. The second thing that they would, the thing after that, they would then have a process in between the time that they get their land use entitlements, perhaps even at the same time, where they would formalize an agreement, because the Planning Commission may also attach conditions of approval to the land use that we may want to memorialize with the conditions that are in the conditional certificate. We would return to the City Council to do that. It will be a binding agreement. The last act with them, for them to be in the land use component, would be to get the issuance of a building permit, go through construction to the TIs, and then get an occupancy permit, or a final, if you will. And then at that point, after that, they would then get the issuance of a ministerial permit from the city manager, which will basically say that everything has been done in the land use process with the building permits and the like, and everything is consistent with those actions of your Planning Commission and City Council. Each year, the CCBP, or the Commercial Cannabis Business Permit, will be reviewed for compliance with local approvals and with state law, and then CCBP will be reissued by the city manager. As I mentioned previously, the main component of the conditions of approval in your resolution tonight include community benefits. And again, these will be memorialized in a written agreement with the City Council. The first community benefit that I want to mention is that, and there's 6 of them total, that Spark will contribute 5% of its profits, or $20,000, to the assistance of the Sonoma Valley Education Foundation and Lelou Center in amounts that are determined by Spark. Again, these are the commitments that were made by Spark in their proposal. There is an alternative viewpoint to some alternatives rather that could be considered by the council, and obviously seek guidance, if you will, from Spark, because they received the staff report on Friday of this week when we went public with this council agenda. The first thing would be to, instead of having profits, we could go with a gross revenues formula, which is easier to calculate with respect to figuring out what the amounts are on a quarterly basis. And it's also consistent with the language that we provided in the measure on the ballot this year. The effort of the council at that point then would be to then distribute the monies received, those gross revenues, to general governmental purposes. Annual payments based on profit could be made by the City Council, and also where you would determine where the certain amounts go to Spark and Lelou's in what proportions as you see fit. The last thing would be that if we continue on with the community benefit number 1 with respect to profits, we may want to make that language clearly how it's defined in that binding agreement when we come back later. Second community benefit is simply a commitment by Spark to provide $4,000 towards its compassion program. This would be to people that are in need of the assistance for medicinal cannabis. The third being that they would allow for the use or selling of Sweet Leaf Collective's accessories in the stores as they partner with them. The fourth commitment is that they would pay above the living wage as we define in our municipal code. The fifth being that they would employ 80% of its employees from the Sonoma Valley area. And the sixth being that they would sign a labor peace agreement that includes card check neutrality when it comes to the unions. And the applicant has told me that they've already got that signed. So tonight, your action would be to adopt a resolution tonight that awards that conditional certificate to Spark. which includes, again, as I mentioned, the community benefits that are within Exhibit A. That same Exhibit A also includes procedural things relating to the reporting of the monies and the timelines for when they have to perform, the year provision that I mentioned previously. But this concludes staff's report at this time. Available for questions, and I'm happy to unshare my screen if I can figure out how to do it.
Mayor Harvey, just one other item, and maybe if the city attorney wants to speak to this, but we did receive a call today from the Spark team. There are a few issues they'd like a little more time to work through, unless something changed, Jeff, since on kind of indemnification, et cetera. But we felt like it was important to go ahead and they may speak in this public comment, but to bring forward any policy clarification, and then any of those potential more detailed legal issues could still be worked through, and potentially council would take action on this on the consent calendar at the next meeting. But there are a few items that still need a little more work between our legal team and their legal team. So Jeff, I don't know if you want to speak any more to that.
I would specifically, Spark would like more time to discuss with the city the indemnification provision and the insurance provision that's contained in the conditions of approval that are part of your packet. And at least at staff level, we're willing to and recommending that the council continue final action on this resolution until the next meeting, giving the parties time to talk about those two issues. However, the staff and our office are requesting the council to address some of the issues that David has outlined, i.e. specifically the question of how are we going to calculate the annual monetary contribution that Spark has agreed to or maybe not agreed to provide to the city, and how those funds to be controlled and spent. And number two, the question of the compassion program. They've agreed, or they propose to give up to $4,000 a month worth of free cannabis and cannabis products. Up to includes nothing, as we know. So the council may feel that it would be wiser to include a commitment to pay a minimum of $40,000 or provide a minimum of $4,000 of free products, or at least have a discussion about that issue tonight with Spark and come to some resolution. I am a little concerned that including an up to figure really is no commitment at all and becomes very problematic to enforce that commitment down the line. So we really do need a number. And then, as I said before, the issue of the profits, Spark's proposal was to contribute 5% of its profits, or $20,000, whichever is greater, specifically to two nonprofits. Monitoring that becomes an annual issue for staff. Profits is a dicey definitional challenge. We certainly can work that out, but it's not in line with the tax measure that you put on the ballot. And if indeed the tax measure passes and the council decides to impose, for example, the maximum tax allowed on retail storefront operators, which is 4% of gross revenues, Spark will pay that plus the amount it has committed to paying here. And the proposal is before you, that's been memorialized in the conditions of approval. My recommendation is that you make those commitments equal, that whatever you decide is the appropriate methodology of calculating the revenue number against which you apply the percentage, that you make it gross revenues consistent with your tax measure, and that you give Spark a credit for whatever it pays under the contract or these conditions of approval against that tax measure. Now, you don't have to do that. That is what we're doing, for example, in Martinez. Martinez has no tax measure, and there's no tax measure proposed to the voters in Martinez. So we're relying specifically and exclusively on contracts with each of the cannabis businesses that's being permitted there. But the contracts with those cannabis businesses expressly provides that whatever contribution is being made to the city acts as a credit against any potential tax that the council might, or the people might vote in effect down the road. Again, you don't have to do that. And as it's set up right now, you could leave the proposal as is. We would struggle with what is meant by profit. But as it stands right now, if the voters adopt the cannabis measure that's on the ballot in November and the council imposes a 4% on gross revenues tax, Spark would pay that plus the amount that's spelled out before you tonight in this resolution.
I have a question. So if we allowed them to basically, you said that what they're doing in Martinez is they're basically waiving taxes or writing off whatever they contribute, they don't pay in taxes to the city.
Correct.
But they're saying 5% of gross revenue, and then we allow them to do that, then they could pay nothing in taxes.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not into that.
But again, you don't have to agree that the amount that they pay goes to specific nonprofits. You could have all of that come to the city for general fund purposes.
But then that's
and you'd be the determinant. You'd be the ones to determine where that money's to go.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen with the taxes anyway. If the public votes for it.
Well, absolutely. But this contract before you doesn't provide for that.
Right. No, I understand that. But
Yeah.
I think, yeah. Do you have questions from council? No? All right. Seeing none, I'll bring it out to the public for public comment. We have Sean Kelly. Hold on one second, Sean. Let me get my timer set. And again, you're going to have 3 minutes. Please don't be offended if I interrupt you.
Mr. Mayor, Sean is a representative of Spark.
Okay, great. Anytime you want to go, Sean, go right ahead.
Sure. I wasn't sure if this falls under public comment or not, but I do want to clarify a few points. We view the two items as completely separate. The intention of the tax being charged, it has nothing to do with our commitment to community benefits. As the city asked for in the application process for us to identify community partners in the beginning of the process and identify what our commitments would be to those partners. That's what we did in the application. The city, we have no qualms with the city charging the full tax amount whatsoever. Feel free to make it 4 or 5, whatever you'd like. That gets charged straight through to customers no matter what anyway, so it's no big deal to us. As far as we're concerned, having the 5% of profits or $20,000 profits is simply, we have to have cash after we pay taxes, both to you, the state of California, license fees to the state of California, and double taxation to the federal government because we don't get to write off any of our expenses. And so profits are literally what's left at the end of the day after we pay all those bills. But we've maintained a minimum of $20,000 committed to be paid. We architected that to go to the two organizations we chose to work with as per the application asked us to. If the city would like to take the responsibility of identifying where they would like that money to go, we're happy to cut the same check to the city above and beyond any of the taxes. I think as both council and Kathy pointed out, we do have some serious concerns about the indemnification request and the insurance requirements because we actually legally can't buy the insurance you've requested because we are not a contractor of the city. We are not actually in business with the city. We're just a business that does business in the city. And so we can't name you as insured and some of these other challenges that are listed in the document as we saw it on Monday evening. If there's any other questions, happy to answer them.
Questions for Sean? Okay, thank you, Sean. Very informative. Do we have anybody else rising for public comment? All right, we have Andrew Dobbs Kramer.
Hi, yes, Andrew Dobbs Kramer, Compliance and Licensing Director for Spark. And I just want to speak briefly to the compassion donation that was mentioned, the $4,000 commitment that was made throughout our application. This is a firm commitment that we hold, it's central to our mission and what we do at all of our stores, and we hold this with the utmost importance. That said, there are operational requirements to do this legally in the state of California. We need to ensure that the people we're working with have the proper state or county issued identification card and some other implementation issues like that. So we'd like to continue to discuss with staff how best to implement this in a way that meets both the intent and the letter of the agreement.
Great. Thank you very much. Anyone else for public comment? Seeing no one rise, I'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the council.
Mayor Harvey, you did have Tobiah Holmes.
Tobiah Holmes, I apologize.
Am I speaking now? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Hi, I'm very late to the whole conversation around this whole issue, but I was just curious if someone could maybe briefly explain to me the that's given to the two local nonprofits. How was that decision come about that it would be those two?
I will answer a question after public comments closed. Fine. And we'll go on. Anybody else raising their hand? And do we have any written public comment?
No, Mayor Harvey, we do not.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Closing public comment. We want to answer the question that, and I'm okay if we want to include Spark in here if there are questions that come up for them. But do we want to answer the question on how the two were decided?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I can take a shot at that. It best be here to hear from Sean or Andrew about specifically why them. But in our application RFP package, we did ask for each of the 10 proposers to identify community benefits that they would commit to. So this was clearly a selection by Spark to select those two particular nonprofits.
There you go. Thank you. Appreciate it. Great. So do we have comments from council?
Quick. So with regard to the compassionate care, the monthly payment, is there a floor that Spark is comfortable with? If the ceiling is 4,000, is there a number that they're comfortable with?
I want to bring Sean Kelly in to answer questions. Let's just bring Sean Kelly and Andrew in case we have questions for them, because I think that's going to happen. Thank you, Rebecca. I appreciate it.
So Sean, I'll let you speak to the floor as you want to define that. But I would just say there is a logistical floor, which is how many folks in the city of Sonoma have medical cannabis recommendations issued through the county and the state, and we simply have to have that recommendation, and the patients all have to have that recommendation to be eligible for this program. So that's kind of our practical floor, if you will. I don't know if Sean has a number.
Just to add to that, I have absolutely no problems committing to a minimum. The minimum as 4,000. That's no one's trying to play a game here. We can't legally give it away unless someone has the card, and we're happy to get more people to have a card, but they have to have it, and they might not all have it now. So once we can help identify a couple of other folks in town, maybe some of the elder care homes, and we can reach out to them and say, hey, if you get some folks that would like to get on a card, and they have to apply for the process with the state, as soon as they have that, then we can legally give them free weed. Until then, we can't.
Okay,
so
thanks.
Yeah.
And we've helped with that process elsewhere, and can certainly provide resources to help with that.
Yeah, this actually became a huge problem for us. It was extremely disconcerting. We had to stop giving away cannabis for a period of a couple of months in the city because we were in violation of state law if we were to continue. And then we had to pay for about 30 of them to get a card because San Francisco charged $150 on top of what the state charged. So it was just it's just, it's a gross thing from my point of view that we had to do that, and we had to pay the state to give people free weed, but that's what we had to do. So we will do that if necessary to make it happen. It just might not all happen on day one.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Thanks.
That's great clarification. I appreciate that.
It's a lot of bureaucracy.
It's a convoluted industry. Certainly, yeah. It's a difficult process. All right, other questions or comments from council? I'm hearing none, I'm seeing none.
Logan, maybe just one other, it sounds like the 4,000 is not going to be an issue for Spark, but the structure we had set up with Fish, where it's kind of city residents, then valley residents, I mean, there could be another way that if council expanded the geography, you could have city residents first and then valley residents. That, again, this council has been comfortable doing that in different things, and that might be another way to assist with the scope.
I would be perfectly comfortable with that, expanding beyond city limits. I think city residents, valley residents is totally fine. Yeah, I think that's appropriate.
So if that could be something you could direct us to change if that was the pleasure of the council.
The current language, Kathy and the mayor, is that the $4,000 a month will be offered to those most in need of medicinal assistance residing in the city of Sonoma or in the immediate surroundings.
Okay, so that's
okay. Great. Awesome. So I'm seeing nothing from council here. No questions, no comments. Do we need action? We need kind of a.
I would like to request the council to give us a sort of a straw vote on item number 1, the issue of 5% of profits or 20,000. Is that separate and apart from the tax measure, and as Sean Kelly is proposing, and if so, we go forward with that.
I think it should be separate and apart from the tax measure, and I appreciate Spark for stepping up there. It's really it's admirable, and I appreciate that deeply. And I'm, I think they have a $20,000 minimum, which I'm fairly comfortable with. I'm okay if it's profits. I'm okay if it's gross receipts. I understand it's a big difference. I think that the industry is heavily regulated right now, so I want to give them the best chance to be a successful business. That's one of the reasons I, it's worked in the first place. I thought they were really able to do it. So, yeah, I would be okay with the way the language is now. It may be a bit tricky, but I don't know what the rest of council is.
Could David Storer, could you put up the slide again?
Yeah, I would appreciate that too.
Thank you. It's baby versions of the city council.
That is one cute photo.
Mm.
That was on purpose.
Yeah, really. Enough already.
We get it. You have a beautiful family, David. Wonderful. We're all jealous.
Yeah.
I guess the question I have is, God forbid, and I don't think it's going to happen, but if one of the nonprofits that they've committed to is, no longer in existence, do they have the flexibility to flip that to something else, or would that have to come to council to approve? Like, are they locked into these nonprofits forever and ever?
They are, unless the agreement we strike with them provides a mechanism for them to reallocate those funds. And I think it's a very good point, Mr. Mayor. I would recommend we include language that would give them that authority.
That is a good point.
I think that's really important.
Maybe with a renewal yearly or whatever to ensure continuity of support or not.
Yeah, I have no opinion on the language because I don't have the ability to write it, but they need that capability for sure to make adjustments.
Good question.
I have a question for Spark. So let's say this council or future the tax measure passes, and it's decided that the tax will be set at the highest end of the spectrum there. Then are you still able to make the payment, or is it how are you contemplating the idea of making the community benefit payment either way in conjunction with the tax?
The tax is a tax that ends up getting partially borne by the customers when they purchase the product. So we price it into the product. So if you set it at 6%, we're going to increase our pricing to help adjust for that tax to offset the flow through, which then leaves us with exactly the same amount of net profit at the end of the day to ensure that we can meet both objectives, which is how we modeled it in our pro forma, which we sent in our original application.
And thank you. And then were you thinking that the community benefits would be an offset on the tax, or was that?
Never. There was never, that came up from the Justice Grown folks as a question that originally, I believe, and that's how that maybe entered the conversation, but we had never anticipated that they were always separate. We never thought that the one offset the other.
Thanks. I guess for me, I would rather that the the payments to nonprofits be done in conjunction with the city with some oversight. I don't think this is a problem with Spark, but just as a general policy matter, I think that would be good.
I mean, it could be conditioned that we must submit evidence that we've made those payments every year, and that's.
I wasn't thinking that. Actually, like, it has nothing to do with you about your organization. It's just that there's so many needs in the Valley right now, and so I think there's some donations that could be more seen as like advertising, maybe, even though they support organizations, and others that might be more like direct aid. And I think it would just be interesting to note, like, what is it being spent on, you know?
It's fair. Again, we chose these two organizations based on two things. One, very specifically with Sonoma Valley Education Foundation, that it was intended to support trauma relief with young children, something that continues to stress us out every day as we live in this red world now. In addition, with La Luz, where we have a deep relationship and hire many, many people from. And so that was why we chose them, because we were asked to choose two. If the city pleased and would prefer them to direct where the city to decide where the money would go to, you know, we wouldn't cry over the spilt milk. We would. I think those organizations might be upset, but you know, we're open. So,
thanks.
First thing, I think it's if we pass this tax measure, we're going to be getting potentially 4%. Of this business that is going to go to the city general funds, and we can direct it wherever we want to. And I think I guess it's a condition of use, and then you could do additional charity work on the side, but we're kind of hamstringing your ability to do that to some extent by just making it a requirement. So for me, I'm more supportive of letting you spend the money as you see fit. And it's kind of what the original agreement was, and kind of how we outlaid it throughout the process. So for me, I kind of fall on that side. And especially since I do think the tax measure will pass. But that's kind of where I'm at right now with it. Yeah.
Are we taking a vote?
I think that'd be helpful, yes. We're going to come back to a straw vote because we're coming back with a final resolution at the next meeting.
Yeah.
And could you clarify what we're voting on?
Yeah.
I got kind of mixed up at the end.
So I guess I'd suggest we bring it into, kind of take this into some different bites. first question is, in terms of the community benefit money, which how that gets determined is to, let's just pretend at this point it's like $20,000 a year minimum. One option is Spark decides what nonprofits that money goes to. The other option is that money comes to the city, and the city then probably would put it in its community recreation fund, and the city could decide, or Recreation and Community Services Fund, and the city could decide which nonprofit it wants to go to. So that's kind of what I would say is decision number one. Community benefit money controlled by Spark, community benefit money controlled by the city. So if someone wants to take a motion, which way to go, and then we can see, and it looks like, is Rachel still on, or does she have to jump off?
I think she's gone.
Okay, so she had to jump. So we got three council members to give us a straw vote in this. So do one of you want to take a straw session?
I'm not super strong on this, but I've expressed my opinion. So.
And for me, I mean, if I'm hearing it correctly, I prefer that I think Spark has already worked with these two organizations, La Luz and the Education Foundation. I think they're both fine organizations, both in spite of the fact that you would think that it's only La Luz that works in the Latino community. They both equally work very hard. So I would support what their suggestion or recommendation is, to stick with those two groups, if I've got this right.
Okay, so
what I'm hearing is
that we let Spark distribute the funds to the two charities they have identified, and the city will not collect those funds, and Spark will do it on their own and report back to us.
Yeah. And then we also need to add a provision that allows them to change. Maybe there's some amount of council oversight, but that allows them to move the money in case, for whatever reason, there's some need. I think La Luz and Education Foundation will continue for a long time, and I think they're both fantastic organizations, but that flexibility needs to exist in the thing.
I agree. I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Mayor.
I think that piece is.
Well, then let's just have, want to change the charity that they give the council notice, and if the council has no objection, then within some period of time, then it can be changed. It doesn't even hearing, it's like they'll give us 45 days notice through the city manager of a change in the charities, and if there's no objection, whatever, I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, and I think we should have an annual report on just what's been done and where it's gone and whatever.
Yeah, it's a donation. You should know if they say they're going to do something, not necessarily, I'm not talking about that Spark, but I'm talking about nonprofit. If they say they're going to do it, they have to do what they say they're going to do. And that's what we need to see when the money goes there.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, in the conditions of approval, I put up on the screen there for a minute. I don't know if you were able to see it. It does require quarterly reports on how they, and the method of their distribution.
And that'll give us a good idea of the profits versus $20,000 matrix and kind of which side it is on. And, I found, so great.
If I may, only one quick comment on that. We would like that to be an annual report, calculating profits on a quarterly basis with varying tax dates, both for state as well as licensing requirements, makes it next to near impossible. Mm-hmm. However, we will gladly report the donations as we make them throughout the year. We would just like that to be trued up at the end of the year on an annualized basis.
I agree with that. It's a lot of work to do quarterly reports.
I was going to say an annual report for the whole thing would be fine for me.
Fine for me. We don't want this to be an encumbrance. We want this to be something that you do and enjoy doing as much as possible, and that you maximize on your own accord as well, which I assume that you'll do.
And also all of our other people that give us reports, the Visitors Bureau, the, TID, it's all annual.
Yeah.
Right.
Only fair.
And Mayor Harvey, I think the only other question then, unless I missed it, because I just step out just for a second, is the question of profit versus gross receipts. And then again, if it's profit, I think we can try to create, when the agreement comes back, just kind of try to define that a little more in the future agreement, if that's a pleasure of council. So
I'd rather do a gross receipts tax because it's a lot easier to calculate.
How much more would that be?
I don't know. That would require some conversation. A gross receipts is definitely going to be more than kind of the pure profit, without a doubt. So if it's going to be, if you're going to say gross receipts and maybe it's, 0.5%, a 1%, a quarter, I don't know what the number is to make it similar to what Spark was recommending on the community benefit. That would take some conversation.
Yeah, I just don't think it should be like, I don't want to switch to gross receipts and now it's effectively, it's effectively 8% or 10% of profits. We agreed to 5. So I think it's got to be close to that if we switch to that from an easier accounting standpoint, but that's going to fluctuate as state taxes fluctuate and all the rest of it. So I think, this is such a different business right now. I think it's easier for us to verify for sure. And I think that that's important. But
I just think that the items that can be included, well, I don't know. So like for a standard appraisal, like of a business and you want to get to the net operating income, there are standard items that you can take off to get to that net figure. So I guess I'm wondering, for this type of business, is there a standard set of categories which come off the top to get to your net figure? Because I don't want to disagree about what would be included in the operating costs.
There are standard formulas utilized in the leasing context. When the owner's leasing a commercial property to a retailer, we can rely on those. And so we can use some pretty standard language to generate the net figure from the gross.
Mm-hmm.
And a tax on gross revenues will be significantly higher than the amount that they're proposing.
And they're already meeting other requirements of paying higher than the living wage, which is one of our, things that we've done and they agreed to, which is important, and then additional taxes and the rest of it. So it's kind of like,
I wasn't thinking of it as a income producing idea. It was more that getting to net income can be more complicated in terms of figuring out what the number is. And obviously gross receipts is like, that's just the number. You're not taking anything out of it. But I would want some agreement in advance about what the buckets were for the, allowable expenses to get to net operating income. So we wouldn't have a dispute later about what those categories were.
Yeah, I would be comfortable with that or a lowered percentage of gross receipts that was mutually agreed upon.
Yeah, I was thinking it would be a different percentage. Yeah,
it would have to be. It would have to be. Sean, you got to chime in.
If I may, the categories would follow the standard P&L, which we submitted again as part of the application. If there are any questions on those categories, they follow GAAP standards. So there's no, it's very straightforward as far as I'm concerned. We just want to make sure we have cash more than 20,000. We're going to commit to 20,000 no matter what. So that sort of takes that hard to calculate question really kind of in my mind off the table. And then it's going to be more than that, suffices to have money left over after we pay our taxes. So that's kind of the plan. And it's a standard GAAP approach to accounting. And again, it is in that P&L format like we submitted. And if there were any questions on what's in those categories, more than happy to answer them and go through that. I want to reiterate, no one is trying to play any games here. We're simply trying to make sure that we don't go bankrupt in overcommitting, which some of our competitors probably were doing.
Yeah, I just want to be clear. This isn't about you guys as operators. You have a great reputation. We're super happy. You're going to be here. It's just basic oversight questions.
Totally. And that's why I think it's to Counsel's point, to Jeff's point, there are very standard approaches here. We are following GAAP accounting and we can absolutely very clearly walk through that and more than happy to do so. We've had to do that in San Francisco. We've had to do that with several other places. So it's not something that we think will be as challenging as Counsel is concerned about.
And Counsel, we are going to be memorializing these points in a written agreement that will come back for final council approval anyhow. So you get another review and a more careful look at the precise language that outlines these criteria.
So Jeff, just as a question, because again, the goal is to bring the conditional certificate back for the meeting on September 21st, based on this kind of new straw vote policy direction. If, and there's, you know, that turnaround time really is kind of 10 days. It's really a week before the next agenda goes out. Is there, even within the resolution, the council would approve a condition? Could it just be stated that, you know, that the, it'd be, you know, the 5% of profit to be defined within the future agreement, or a similar gross receipts percentage if the profit number cannot be delineated well enough? But we give ourselves a little flexibility, and then the agreement that's going to come back when we've got a little more runway to figure that out could then encompass all that. Does that cause you concern?
I don't think so. No. I'm really concerned about coming up with a percentage against gross receipts. It would be easier for the council just to give us direction right now that they're comfortable with 5% of profits, and we'll come back with a formula in a contract that the council can approve or not.
I'm fine with that.
So moved.
Okay, perfect.
Sweet. So seconded. So roll called.
Madeline?
Aye.
Great.
So David and Jeff, I think those were the policy directions we needed.
Is that what you wanted, or you wanted $5? What did you want from me?
$5.
Agrimonti.
Agrimonti.
I'm
Do you
going
want it?
on.
Right, good.
We have direction, and then again, there's some kind of legal issues to work through, insurance indemnification. Staff has not had a chance to have those conversations. And again, assuming we get to a place that's comfortable, we will change that language. And again, the goal is to bring this back on the 21st.
Thanks for getting it back fast this time.
Yeah.
Good work, everyone. Thank you, Spark.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, staff, for your hard work. David, you're a rock star. Sweet. Cool. Move on. Item 6.2. Provide an update regarding the city's business expansion and recovery efforts, including the promenade, parklets, and parking augmentation ideas. City manager.
Actually, I'm going to turn it over to the team that's been working really hard on this. So I'm going to, I think, shift it to Colleen, who's got lead, and you're going to hear from a number of staff people plus some of our business leaders.
Awesome.
And I'll do a brief wrap at the end. Colleen?
Okay, welcome council on this weird orange day. Almost feels like Public Works Day, but we like the orange on the ground, not up in the air all day. So we're here to talk about our business expansion and recovery program. We have a whole team, as City Manager Capriola mentioned, to talk about what we've been working on, including the promenade, the parklets, parking augmentation ideas. And as everyone knows, the worldwide pandemic and the resulting economic impact have been particularly devastating in Sonoma with our strong tourism-based economy. So this slide outlines the presentation. We'll be hearing from the businesses, give some updates on what we have been doing so far, and talk about some of the challenges and opportunities that we see going forward. There's a lot of trade-offs, a lot of things to consider, and we'll get into a lot of that as we go through the presentation. I know that I want to read every bullet on the slide, but there's certainly a lot of discussion, a lot of ideas, a lot of things happening in this area. This is definitely a team effort. So before we get into details, I want to acknowledge the whole team that's working together on this. There's a diverse list of city staff shown on the slide. We check in regularly with the business partners, especially with Mark Bodenhammer of the Chamber of Commerce, and also with the council subcommittee, Mayor Harvey and Vice Mayor Hundley. Now it's time to hear directly from two of our business partners, Mark Bodenhammer from the Sonoma Valley Chamber of Commerce and Tim Zahner from the Sonoma Valley Visitors Bureau, Maureen Cunningham from the Sonoma Valley Vintners and Growers Alliance had a family commitment tonight and wasn't able to join us. So I think both Mark and Tim are in the meeting, and I'll turn it over to them.
Thank you, Fergie. Good evening, Mayor and council members, and thank you once again for the opportunity to speak. And yeah, Maureen sends her best and has deputized Tim and I to take the reins tonight. So we're the two of us are speaking on behalf of all three organizations who have been working so closely together throughout this whole thing. So just a quick recap since we last addressed the full council and the community in this public forum. The ad hoc committee that you saw on the previous slide has met multiple times, and there have been even more meetings involving the core group of city staff. And I really just want to take a moment to commend them for how responsive and adaptable and creative and dedicated they've been for our business community. This is not normal operations and things that people signed up for in their jobs, and everybody has really taken this kind of approach of us all being in it together and rolling up their sleeves. So really all of those team members you saw on the previous slide, and extending beyond that to public safety, to the rest of the public works team, and even the park maintenance crew that are changing what they do to accommodate some of the new things that we've done. So one of the main things that came out of our last couple of ad hoc meetings was the need to go back out and reconnect with the people on the ground in the business community, because so much has changed in the last few months. It's a very dynamic environment out there, and what the concerns were and what the ideas for how we can navigate that 3 months ago are almost completely obsolete. So the ad hoc committee asked our three organizations to go back out and check in, and so we organized a number of individual industry focus groups, and we're still going to do more of those moving forward, but we did some check-in. So I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of what we found and what we learned, and then Tim will kind of talk a little more about looking forward and sort of where we're headed and where the needs are. So a lot of input from people, and really, you know, the primary message is it's getting kind of bleak out there. We're really running out of time, and businesses are running out of money, and this is a quickly changing environment that's very difficult for these people to navigate. So the needs a few months ago were actually kind of uniform. Everybody really, you know, we were all forced to be closed. And now as we've evolved and we're in this purple zone, and different businesses can be partially opened and others almost entirely opened, the needs are just varied. And so it makes it a lot more complicated for our team, both our organizations and the citywide team, to adopt strategies that are going to be useful to everybody. So the needs are more individualized. One of the main things that kept coming up was this concept of the ecosystem and the symbiotic relationship of different businesses. We met with some retailers, and they were saying that when nearby restaurants were closed, it almost didn't make sense for them to be open, because that's how drastic the impact was. Similarly, I've heard from hotels that when the wineries are all closed, that just zaps their business and they get all of these cancellations. So you really do see how that local economy works together. It's one of those things that I think we all assumed and understood in theory before all of this happened. But as we start shutting down segments of the economy, you really see how that works, and it really kind of highlights the importance of you know, the rising tide lifting all boats. And if we're missing pegs on that stool, it really does just it makes it very tricky for other industries. So stressing the importance of working together. Again, running out of time, running out of money. Businesses were able to access lots of funding back in April and May and June. Some of them weren't. I want to remind everybody that new businesses, those that haven't been in operation for a couple of years, they didn't have access to a lot of the same funding. So some of our new startups are just barely getting off the ground, and they just don't have as many tools in their tool shed as some of the more established businesses. Do have winter coming up. That's going to change the dynamic of a lot of the outdoor operations, and so that is going to create new concerns in terms of lighting, in terms of weather conditions and things like that. Currently we have the park dining, and that just may not be quite as viable in 2 months as it is today. We're going to maximize what we can right now, but want to just keep in mind that what's working today may not work 60 days from now. Also, just a reminder that the debt service for all of those loans is going to come due. Lots of businesses borrowed a lot of money. Lots of businesses got rent deferrals, or offset some of those payments, or deferred some salaries, and pretty soon all of those debt payments are going to start coming due. So there's going to be an extreme need over the next 6 months for us to sort of escalate what we're doing and continue to get more creative. So as we move forward, I do want to just recognize the business owners. And I guess I first, being Labor Day, Mayor Harvey, you touched on this at the outset, but really do just want to take a moment to pause and recognize the contributions of so many people that, are out there, not only on the front lines, the people who, at hospitals and places like that, but also right now during harvest, there are a lot of people that are out there really just doing work that is incredibly difficult and challenging in a good situation. And right now we've got all kinds of complications. So want to recognize, the laborers, the people that show up to work in our community and make our community work, and pull all of these things together for Sonoma and for the Valley. Also want to thank the business owners for their very candid and frank discussions about what's going on in their world. And it's not easy to sit there and share with somebody that I'm now down to just a couple of weeks, but that's the reality. And there are businesses that these are people who have spent years and maybe decades building something that's important to them, that they're passionate about, and that's a key part of our community. And they're they've shown amazing resilience and adaptiveness and all of that. But I just want to pause and recognize their contributions to this conversation so that we can address things that are make a difference for them moving forward. So with that, I want to turn it over to Tim and talk a little bit about what we can do moving forward.
Great. Thank you, Mark. And thank you also for recognizing what everyone does. Labor Day is always a time, usually for a lot of people, to enjoy time with their family. And it's kind of the end of summer. It's the high season in tourism. But most people work in hospitality, work on Labor Day. So it's always kind of nice to hear, the day after Labor Day, they have a day off. And it's good to recognize that. As Mark alluded to, it's been pretty rough. At the beginning of this, we were all kind of in the same boat and trying to figure it out. Then we have this mixed opening, and then we have all these new rules and regulations, and now throwing in the smoke and the PSPSs and all the other things going on. It's incredibly difficult. And I think when we recognize that, I know when I'm doing calls and Mark's doing calls, you do hear from people who have got their family on the line and they're having a hard time. And a lot of our businesses are small, locally owned businesses. So how do we help them and keep the community going? FDR supposedly said, do something. If it works, do more of it. If it doesn't work, do something else. And I think we're kind of in that phase. As some of you know, we work together on the things like allowing businesses to expand outdoors, really working hard on the Plaza program, doing things like the Sonoma Promenade, and kept trying new things. And I think we're at this phase here where we have to look at what else can we do now in light of winter, in light of maybe this is going to be going on for another year or so, who knows? And then also what is affordable, because they have already borne out a lot of costs for these businesses. So it has to be something that's pretty easy to do. So we come up with some ideas, some of which we can kind of quickly summarize. And Mark, I'm not stepping on your toes, am I? Because we're kind of like tag teaming here in our presentation. So, all right. So I'll talk about a little bit about what the businesses are telling us and what we're looking to do and how to do that. So, excuse me. Businesses have expressed an interest in having more flexibility in implementation of parklets and outdoor operations, the allowance for winterizing of structures, consideration of removals of fees and barriers, and applications for change to the use permit, perhaps on a temporary basis. For example, closing times. Maybe some winery tasting rooms have a closing time a little earlier, than maybe they could expand that. we've heard maybe expediting approval of applications so they can hurry up and get stuff out there. And then for Mark and I, it's looking at strategic programming that we can back with marketing to go after regional customers. So for example, we've talked about a passport program around the city, around the valley to get people moving around, an outdoor consumer experience. We're very mindful that we don't want to do another event, which are not allowed, but some sort of serial-like thing that keep people coming here and supporting all the different small businesses. And then also, and Mark's really done a good job with this, is networking opportunities for the businesses so they can talk about the changes. Actually, Mark, in a little less than 12 hours, we'll be kicking off our first hospitality connection thing where we're getting, I believe, 40 businesses together to talk and present and kind of brainstorm ideas on this. And the more networking we can do together, hopefully the better solutions we can get. So that's what we're looking at. And thank you for the time for us to present.
And just one last item, I just want to also just tack on a thank you to the community in general for being supportive of these ideas. We have been extremely cognizant of the asks that we've made of the community to share some of these public spaces, and we've tried to be as conservative as we possibly can and respect those boundaries and respect those public spaces and not have any unnecessary impacts on the residents of Sonoma Valley and the residents of the city of Sonoma and neighboring businesses. And I think part of what we're here tonight is to just ask for we appreciate what you've given. We're going to ask for another tiny slice of that pie to just try to keep our community continuity together, and those businesses we just don't want to see wide scale losses of jobs or of the kind of people and places that really make up the cultural fabric of the community. So just on behalf of the business community, the support that the people have shown, showing up to do takeout, to continue supporting restaurants, even though we're all on tight budgets, to shop locally, all of those things are making a huge difference. And it really is, it's appreciated.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Mark and Tim, as staff trying to support the local businesses in Sonoma. It's fabulous to have such a great team to work with, and that conduit between the businesses and staff trying to work together to make things happen. It makes all the difference. So thanks to both of you. So moving on, and of course, none of this could happen without the city council support. So this slide goes over some of the actions that the council has taken to support the business community and the workers and the local economy. So this slide shows the progression from the May 18th city council meeting, when council authorized staff to expand business operating space using public sidewalks, the plaza, Rinstead Amphitheater, public rights of way, including parking areas and roadways, and people expanding onto their own property or to neighboring properties with the neighboring property owners' permission. And a lot of that has been happening. And council authorized creating drop-off and delivery parking spaces, and you've seen that around town as well. Because there's a lot of takeout going on right now. And also to expand into private parking spaces as well as public parking spaces on a temporary basis. And then August 3rd, the city council authorized staff to implement a partial street closure on First Street East between Pangloss and Maya. And everyone's seen that has gotten a lot of use since we closed that piece of street. And council also authorized that day to allow canopies to be installed over outside seating areas on public sidewalks and city streets. And then also the Sonoma Promenade, partial closure of First Street East along the plaza on weekend evenings. So that's been going on. And then last, on August 17th, the council allowed Depot Park and other city parks to be used for business and nonprofits outdoor expansion, because it's not just restaurants, it's also exercise classes and all that need space to expand into. And now it's my pleasure to turn over the presentation to the city's special events coordinator, Lisa Jansen. events. We all know when the pandemic made it clear that special events on the plaza would not be happening this year. Lisa shifted her energy into pandemic-related community support. So she's working with the individual businesses on business expansion and coordinating with the rest of the city team, getting them through the city approval process and getting everyone's input so that whatever we do will be successful. So now, Lisa, are you ready?
Can you hear me, Colleen?
Yes.
Perfect. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I want to provide just a really quick update on, and Colleen, if you can actually change the slide, that would be lovely, on our Sonoma Alfresco program, which incorporates all of our outdoor seating expansion programs that we've developed to date. All these programs were done in conjunction with the Sonoma Chamber of Commerce with input from the Sonoma Valley Vintners and Growers Association and the Sonoma Valley Visitors Bureau. Each of these programs required coordination. In addition to those, each of these programs have required coordination with our public safety team comprised of fire and police, and with outside local agencies, California Department of Alcoholic Beverages Control and the Sonoma County Office of Environmental Health and Safety. We currently have multiple solutions for businesses, but I want to just express in my daily calls with businesses, it never feels like it's enough. And it feels like it's been a real moving target, and we're running as quickly as we can to find solutions. But again, it just, there's more to come and more work to be done. So with that, what we've done to date is we've allowed use of sidewalks, courtyards, parking lots, alleys, both in private and the public, on public and private property. These types of uses have gone through the planning department, and most were issued temporary use permits for this type of use. The city has approved 5 plaza use permits for expanded outdoor dining Thursday through Sunday. These are the ones that are occurring on the Sonoma Plaza. They include Burgers and Vine, Girl in the Fig, Maya, La Casa, and Psy. Now you might be wondering, maybe you haven't seen all of them. I know Maya is still working through some of the details, but we look forward to seeing a full use of the plaza with those 5 organizations. This seems to be working out really well. The community seems to be extremely supportive. It feels really safe. But again, all the restaurants, including city staff, really aren't seeing this as a long-term solution as we move into the winter, and just the need to determine a way to cover and needing canopies, heat, and lights, and worried about the plaza grass. So we've temporarily closed part of First Street East between Pangloss and Maya, and you can expect some exciting things to come within this space. We're in discussions with both Maya and Pangloss, and as they're starting to transition to kind of what their winter plans are. And very creative companies and businesses, and I'm really looking forward to working with them on some nice creative spaces. We've also launched a parklet program, and I'm going to let Colleen discuss this a little bit later, but I want to mention it because I'm sure it's the one that keeps coming up, and there's been a lot of progress made on that program. To date, we've approved 21 applications for business expansion with our local businesses that are here downtown. So just quickly, Colleen, next slide, please. So these are just 3 images. The lower left corner is a picture of BV. This is their parklet that has changed slightly as the water barriers are now connected. The middle image is a sidewalk seating at Girl in the Fig, and then the lower right are kids enjoying the Sonoma Promenade, enjoying ice cream at Sweet Scoops. And with that, Colleen, can you hit the next slide, please? Thank you. So in August, we launched the Sonoma Promenade. It was approved as a full street closure of First Street East between Spain and Napa Street, Friday through Saturday evenings between 5 and 10 p.m. We received and approved 7 applications, and we received 7 applications and approved 5. But when the day approached for the initial launch, we only had 2 companies who decided to actually take part in the promenade. This decision had been made earlier, to only use a portion of First Street East due to the locations of those businesses that had shown an interest. So really what we ended up doing is closing the street north of the Mercata parking entrance. This program has garnered some positive support from the community and the businesses who participated. However, due to cost to implement, city staff is recommending just pausing the program with the thought, as the winter approaches, perhaps there might be more interest once the Plaza dining sunsets and restaurants are looking for more outdoor space, especially over the weekends. The timing of this launch was fraught with challenges. We had smoke, we had fires, and we had a heat wave, all making it less desirable to be out on the pavement. But Plaza Bistro did see success in participation, and so did Sweet Scoops. For those businesses that were approved but to participate in the program but took a pass, the reasons, and I wanted to share this with you, is I have enough space on the plaza, I can't find staffing, and logistically it's too difficult to have two different service areas. All of these items, you know, kind of highlight the need for space, outdoor space with closer proximity to the businesses themselves. It's really highlighted the need for additional outdoor dining that can be more permanent, even though it's temporary, with the ability to cover and light it and heat, as we are all starting to think about transitioning to winter and what the new normal is going to look like for restaurant service. And with that, I'd like to hand it off back to Colleen Ferguson, our Public Works Director.
Thank you, Lisa. It's great to see all the work that we've done. And now we're looking towards the future. And we talk a lot about parklets at this point and the need to get the outside service closer to the kitchens, closer to the inside places that diners would be served if allowed. And so the parklets would be right next to the restaurants. And so if we talk about a parklet, what is a parklet? It's defined as a small seating area or green space created as a public amenity on or alongside a sidewalk, especially in a former roadside parking space. So when we talk about parklets around Sonoma and why they fit the restaurant needs, they're close to the kitchen, close to the physical restaurant. There's more opportunity to winterize a canopy versus just being out in the winterize a parklet with a canopy, with heaters, with that access to power from the restaurant. And there's a range of parklet styles, from something very modest and inexpensive to something quite elaborate, and we'll show examples of those. And there's always a need for accessibility in anything we do, as well as recognizing that with winter will come rain, and we need to keep the gutters clear with water flowing. We want the parklets to have aesthetic appeal, to respect the city's heritage, and also acknowledge that when we convert either parallel or diagonal parking spaces to a parklet, that's places that cars will not be parking. And so as we move towards parklets, we acknowledge there may be a need to have better signage to direct people to parking areas that already exist, or to provide additional parking as parklets go into place. So the parklet program overall, the city is working on guidance and kind of pre-authorization so that the restaurants would have an idea of what would be acceptable to the city, going from low-cost options to more elaborate options. Of course, anything we would put in the street would need to adhere to the vehicle code. So I will work with our consulting traffic engineer and coordinate with police and fire, and then authorize the use of curbs, barriers, markings, and other delineation that's right out of the vehicle code to designate what's a pedestrian pathway or a parklet area set apart from the roadway. Of course, in any case, pedestrian passage must be maintained. There's been interest from restaurants around the plaza for parklets, especially in the diagonal parking spaces, in addition to the parallel parking spaces that we've done some of already. The city has an encroachment permit that we've already approved for Burgers and Vine that you've seen out in the street. and then 3 in the queue from Della Santina, Plaza Bistro, and Cafe La Haye, which is a sidewalk extension we'll talk more about. We could have 3 to 13 Plaza businesses interested in the parklet program, with up to 65 of the 335 parking spaces converted to parklet. So that's about 20%. And we're looking at, as I said, other creative strategies to address parking needs. Now here's some examples of what we've seen in other Sonoma County cities, and they show some inexpensive ways to create these barriers I mentioned to separate the parklet from the roadway in an aesthetically pleasing sort of way. Of course, safety is extremely important for any parklet concept, and as we heard, cost is an issue for many local businesses. You've seen some city purchased water walls that we're making available at no cost on a first come first served basis. These water walls that you see in Sonoma at this point are in their naked orange form, and these water walls can be dressed up as shown on this slide with coverings, plants, umbrellas. Seen water walls used in other cities as weights to strap down canopies and to support poles, hanging up string lights around parklets. So water walls don't have to be naked ugly, they can be in other forms, depending on creativity of what we all come up with. And there is a real need to be able to light up these parklet spaces as the days are getting shorter. And so the city staff will be working with businesses on safe ways and inexpensive ways to get the power from the restaurant over the sidewalk into the parklet space with electricity to power the lights. This is an example from Windsor. This is a more elaborate parklet that was constructed at Valette Restaurant in Healdsburg. And this is a major investment, obviously, with a raised platform, planters, lights, shade sails. It's a very nice use of the space and not within most restaurant budgets. Just want to show the full range of options that are out there. And the city has been getting price quotes on construction of raised parklets. The price ranges from $4,000 for a basic plywood deck to $27,000 for a customized deck, not as elaborate as this one at Valette. It gives you some idea of the price ranges for parklets. It's quite a broad range. And this is a constructed, installed item. Another option is a temporary like staging from a rental company. So these next 2 slides show examples of rented structures set up by a production company out of Sausalito. They're not inexpensive, but they're pretty dramatic. This one is in Truckee. It's a pretty elaborate setup. And here's another setup also in Truckee by the same company, a bit more modest. We have one restaurant in Sonoma that's exploring an option like this. Another option, besides having the diners in the parking spaces, is to shift the pedestrians into a sidewalk extension using the parking spaces so that the full width of the sidewalk can be used for dining. So the graphics shown here would be a sidewalk extension that could be constructed in front of Cafe La Haye to give the full sidewalk to the restaurant. It would provide an accessible path of travel using concrete. It would be a durable option for all the winter months. It provides for drainage. It could easily be removed when it's no longer needed. The cost for this 75-foot long, 5.5 foot wide concrete sidewalk would be at about $5,000. It would cover 4 parking spaces. And as shown on the slide, the water wall barriers could be treated to go with the building or have some other aesthetic treatment that's consistent with the historic aesthetic in Sonoma. Cafe La Haye has expressed a strong preference for a sidewalk extension instead of a parklet that puts their diners in the parking spaces. And so we're talking to Cafe La Haye about that. If council supported the city working with a contractor on construction of a concrete sidewalk extension in Cafe La Haye, it could be in place until October 2021 and possibly extended into 2022, depending on the need with the pandemic. Another outdoor business expansion consideration is a larger festival tent that is, if things evolve to where a business was interested in it, something like this could be set up in the parking lot behind City Hall. Just another option that we see out in another community in Sonoma County. So for next steps, staff is working with a landscape architect and a construction company trying to further explore parklet ideas, and especially if we could come up with some sort of template parklets that could be done in more of a production mode by companies, so that it would be more cost effective overall to provide parklet spaces for downtown businesses. I'm working with the chamber, continuing to meet with restaurants and tasting rooms to review options and develop parameters that restaurants can use to come up with their own ideas for parklets. And then as you've heard, the businesses are really having a tough time right now, so we may want to consider city grant funding to offset costs of parklets. If so, we would bring a program back for council consideration. So that concludes our presentation, and our team looks forward to council questions, discussion, direction, and input. And I'd welcome the city manager to add any comments to the presentation.
Thank you, Colleen. Thank you, Colleen, Lisa, Tim, and Mark. Just a few quick thoughts. I think that was a very thorough presentation on where we've been and where we could be going. Just one, I think it is important to say that I think there really is this balancing act. We have to look at how do we create some of these parklets that are effective, safe, winterized, but not too expensive, and yet look nice. So that's really what we're trying to do here, to try to make it work. The other, I did just want to communicate, I got a text from Maureen Cunningham from Vendors and Growers, and she just really wanted to convey to the council appreciation for all of kind of the support. The tasting rooms, they do have some other specific ideas too, but some more that will come back at a later time, but just appreciative of all the city's support. And they've been again, I can't thank enough. I can't thank our business community or staff enough. Mark, Tim, and Maureen have been phenomenal kind of team. And I also want to thank Rachel and Logan, who have met with us a number of times as subcommittee as we work through options. Again, I think council having an ad hoc that you have trusted to work with staff on this has let us move quickly and a little more agilely through some of these as we figure this new world out. So I don't know, I know Rachel just is walking in and wasn't able to see the presentation, but Logan and Rachel, if there's anything you'd like to say before we maybe take council questions and public comment. Oh, let me one other thing. The purpose of this really was to give you an update, not necessarily. So just one other thing. The purpose of this presentation was to update you in the Promenade Council and to you've already given us direction to kind of move forward, but there was any additional feedback or thoughts you had as we kind of really are shifting now to looking more at parklets. So with that, I'll turn to Logan and Rachel.
I can't see anybody. If you could stop sharing the screen so we could see people. We may need to go back to the slideshow too. But let's just stop sharing the screen for now. But yeah, I mean, I'll make comments again at the end, but I just, the amount of work that's gone into this has been tremendous. And the collaboration between Public Works, Public Safety, Vendors and Growers, the business community, the chamber, TID and the hotel community, Kathy and Lisa, it's just been an insane amount of work and just fantastic. And I think the business community is you know, appreciative, and these are difficult and unprecedented times. And I think it's really, you know, it's disheartening to hear some of the numbers that Mark has laid out for us. And it just shows the challenge that we're in, and consistently, you know, we're doing everything that we can, and we open up the promenade and then we have smoke. And, you know, before that we had COVID and, you know, we have fires that are encroaching on us. And so it's just this constant kind of new battle that's ever evolving. But you guys have stayed strong through it and have continued to come up with creative ways. And I just appreciate the flexibility of the staff. It's been unbelievable, the amount of work that you've put in and the amount of communication that's come back and forth. And Mark put together, 3 different committees of retailers, of hoteliers, and we got, Maureen led one with the wineries, and I just think it's fantastic to get the feedback, to hear what they have to say, and really get real-time updates on what's going on and how we can be helpful. So I've appreciated that, and appreciated the work of Rachel as well, the vice mayor. She's been fantastic on the committee, and we've tried to be as collaborative as possible and just keep moving forward and whatever's smartest and is going to be most successful for our business community. So it's all a team effort, and encourage anybody that's listening to this to go spend some money, get some pickup food if you can afford it, and support these businesses, because we want to keep our local flavor and our local flair and our local businesses here, because it's crunch time right now. We're heading into a difficult season, and the hits have kept coming. So be supportive and be helpful, and sitting at Maya having a margarita is not a bad time, especially when there's no smoke. So recommend it. Great. Rachel, if you want to make comments, and then we'll go into questions and get this thing going.
Yes, I regret that I missed the presentation, but I did want to take the opportunity to thank everyone that's been involved. It's every call we've had, it's just been a new wave of information and ideas, and I just love that it's a very determined group that's very creative, but also very practical. And I'm also thankful to all of the business owners out there who have taken the time to give information, because it's been helpful focusing on the goals, which is supporting our local businesses, and also a little painful to hear more stories of the reality of what it is. And I can only think with days like today, it's not helping. So I feel hopeful about the work we're doing, and I think it's going to continue to be an ever evolving campaign to figure out ways to get our local businesses to make some money so they can stay open, and also have safe places for people that live and visit here to be able to eat and buy things. So thank you all for all of your hard work.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. I appreciate it. Or Vice Mayor Hundley. I'm trying to be more formal. I'm trying to do that, but it's hard because
I prefer Mrs. Agrimonti.
Mrs. Agrimonti, do you have any questions for us?
Well, I actually do. Thank you.
All right.
I think I brought this issue up probably a few weeks ago, and I don't know if it has been remedied. Sergeant Barras brought up the issue about barriers. I don't know if that's the right terminology for them, but they are made to connect with a rod and water filled, and I'm just concerned that I don't want to discuss it, because I think so much hard work has gone into this, but I just still have my concerns. I don't know if those things have been remedied, and if not, we can talk about again.
Mrs. Agrimonti, I'd like to address that, and the water wall barriers that are installed outside of Burgers and Vine have been interlocked per Sergeant Barras' request. In many locations in other communities, the water walls are used not as a traffic control device. They're used as a delineation. This area is not part of the roadway. This area is. So when they're used in that manner, much like a wine barrel might be used, or a planter might be used, or a curb might be used. They designate, this is the sidewalk, separate from the street.
Mm-hmm.
Then the water walls would not need to be interlinked any more than wine barrels or planters or anything would need to be interlinked. So and I agree with Sergeant Barras that when a water wall is being used as a traffic control device, it is designed to be interlinked. And we have interlinked them at Burgers and Vine, where he expressed a particular concern. We may see the water wall barriers used in other applications, just as that delineation between the roadway and the parklet or sidewalk area. And then those would not be interlinked. So I just want to be clear about that.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I took what he said to heart. My father was a machinist and he taught me about different parts, and this is how they work, and they don't work this way. So I was really appreciative that, it was far more important that you all considered what Sergeant Baraz offered, just because the difference between that water well, is that what it's called, or a barrier?
A water wall barrier.
Mm-hmm. Without the connection, under some circumstances, they would turn into a projectile. So that's the thing I was concerned about. So I'm happy that people have listened and think it's just as important as we did. Thanks.
Thank you.
I think it looks wonderful. I actually think this whole plaza, everybody should do a sage burning. I don't know what the other answer is. We can't get rid of the smoke. We just need to, maybe we can't do sage burning because
I don't know if more smoke's the answer. Yeah.
Yeah, that may not be the. That was just
better, certainly. Yeah, it's with the water walls and stuff. It is this balance between traffic safety and expense and getting things done in the right way, and it's been difficult to balance. And I think staff has always been in conversation and talking to and taking public safety into account as best as possible. But as we ratchet up the public safety piece, the expense gets much higher, which makes it non-viable for business. And so all of those things, we have to figure out where council's comfortable and where we're all comfortable to put it in. The same thing goes with design aesthetic and to a certain extent, design aesthetic and price as well. So that's been one of the struggles for sure, working in the subcommittee, is trying to balance all those different concerns: the look, the feel, the viability on an expense side, and then the strength and structure of the blockage from the.
And my comment, another comment, I guess, would be that a lot of money is going into this, lots. So I just hope it does benefit business, because I probably eaten at every restaurant, taken out from every restaurant, bought out artifacts, and so I'm just excited to keep shopping.
Well, that's great. Other questions or comments from council?
I have a comment, but should I do it after public comment, or we're not having public comment?
Oh, we're having public comment, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just make my comment at the end.
Okay, great. And then just to reiterate, I guess we'll do it after comment, but if we can reiterate kind of what the direction that's needed from council is when we come back from public comment, just going to be ready for that as far as what we want to do. Great. So I'll go ahead and open things up for public comment. If members of the public would like to speak, we have Tabahaya Holmes. Or Tabahaya Holmes. I apologize if I mispronounced your name.
It's okay. Yeah, it's Tabaya.
Okay.
Yeah. So I actually, again, sorry if I'm not following the format correctly, but I have a question. So I don't know if public comments also includes questions.
Yeah, the public can ask questions. We typically answer them after public comments close. So go ahead and.
Okay, great. Well, I'm curious about the parklets. I saw the slideshow with the different examples, and including some of the raised up like deck style ones. I'm curious, does the city have guidelines and requirements on how these should look or be constructed, and do plans need to be approved? And finally, if there's an interest in doing this, does it go to the city or does it go to the business directly? I ask because I'm at Hannah Boys Center, and we have a really strong vocational ed program. And with COVID, our kids can't really get out into the community as they usually have. But this is something that I would, if it's open to bids or whatever, that cost of materials plus maybe a little help for some of the kids, and they would love to be part of something like that.
Interesting suggestion. Great, thank you, Tabaya. We'll move on to if there's any additional public comment. And did we have any written public comment? I know that we did, LaTanya, so.
No, Mayor Harvey, we don't have a written.
Oh, I thought we did. I thought we had one.
We had received it, but usually we don't read the ones that we received prior to the meeting. They're posted on our public comment portal. And
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. So we had received one from Laura Feedman of Valley Bar and Bottle. So I hope council's reviewed that. And great. We'll go ahead and close public comment. Thank you, Latanya. And bring it back to council. Yeah, go for it.
No, I was just going to say, are you going to address that question?
Yeah, so let me start and then maybe Colleen can add. So in terms of part of what we are working on now is putting together some kind of schematics to look to see what, to make it easier for businesses. And we're also getting some costing. So really we're trying to figure out if there is an opportunity for the city to financially help in some ways, whether it's grants or whether for parklets we do a piece of something and then the restaurant does another. You know, it could be that, you know, maybe there's these full platforms, but there's also the need to potentially in some areas create a little bit of a flatter area so that we don't have the step down from the curb. And so that is a place maybe where the city could participate. But there's a variety of options that we're we've reached out to some of our private sector project and a building company to give us some more reality check and information on that. And again, there's going to be a balance of how do we move forward versus kind of having one firm, the city does, we create plans for individual businesses to do themselves. So that's not all figured out. It's great to know that there's a program here with Hannah. Would love to maybe if Tobiah could send some information to City Hall at sonomacity.org. We'll have some contact information. Whether it's this specific or some components of this, there might be something that we could involve Hannah with. So I'm happy to have that contact for whether it's this program or a future program. That was not something that I think we were aware of. So,
Kathy, if you wouldn't mind just putting in the chat the email address that he should email, so
I will try to do that. Yes.
If not, I can. Is it City Hall?
I can do it. I got it.
You can do it.
You got it, Kathy.
I can do it. Go ahead.
Okay. Now I do have a comment.
All right, go for it, Councilmember Harrington.
So, to the council subcommittee, to Mark and the Visitors Bureau and the Vintners and Growers, and to Lisa Jansen and Colleen and everybody else who's been involved. Your work is amazing, and thank you so much. And I know that basically it's been whatever needed to be done, you did it, and it really shows. And I support all the work that's being done. I think it's good that we're able to try things and then keep them what works and not keep what doesn't work. So I think it's good that we have the flexibility to experiment a little bit and that everybody's open to that. And I just wanted to say, I thought, in this time with so many disasters, the having things open on the plaza gives people a sense of normalcy. And, we talk so much about supporting our businesses and keeping the plaza alive, but I think it really provides a psychological relief to people to see some normalcy. And so I think it's definitely a two-way street where we're supporting those businesses, but they are also supporting the well-being of the rest of the community by allowing us to still have something that's familiar like that. So to everybody, such hard times, but whatever we can do to continue to support as the council and great ideas that keep coming forward, I look forward to supporting them. Thank you.
So is there direction that we need from council tonight that we're looking for? We're just kind of an update.
I think if this was a general update, again, I do think if there at this point, we plan on preparing what I would call schematics and parklet guidelines for businesses to move forward. We're not planning on bringing that formally back to council. You gave the subcommittee authority to review those kind of documents, et cetera. You've already told us that we have the authority for different agreements to do those. And I think, we can
breaking up a little.
any.
Break it up.
Am I breaking up?
Yeah, you were full robot voice for a bit there.
I'm sorry.
Hopefully, hoping the city manager's system gets back on full strength. I'll chat for a little bit about we are talking at staff and with the business community about shifting from the promenade that we've done for the last few weekends, not the ideal weekends for something like that, but with the limited business engagement in the street closure area, to instead make the shift to the parklet. So where there's diagonal parking spaces in front of the businesses that have been setting up in the closed promenade area, to let Plaza Bistro and Sweet Scoops set up parklets in the diagonal parking spaces in front of their businesses. And this would be the first use of diagonal parking spaces versus parallel parking spaces for business expansion. This is kind of a check-in point with the council to make sure everybody's comfortable with that. But we're ready to make that shift from street closure promenade, which is a lot of work, to something that really is better for the businesses to be right close to where the restaurant and the kitchen and all that are. So that's the direction we're going. If council doesn't want us to go that direction, this is the time to speak up.
Great.
Personally, from a public works standpoint, I'd love to get council thumbs up or not on the concrete sidewalk extension along Cafe La Haye with a different treatment or some kind of aesthetic treatment for the water walls. Maybe the city manager's not ready for that.
Well, I mean, I think the concrete is one option, but I think there's also, there may be, again, I think we're playing with some different types of options. Again, concrete may work. Maybe we've got some construction folks giving us some ideas. So I don't want to completely get locked down with that. But again, I think it's important to communicate to council that Colleen does have this idea of one option is temporary concrete that could be pulled back out. And it is a good way to definitely.
You're cutting off, Kathy. So I'll ask council that's here. Do we have general support for a sidewalk extension in front of Cafe La Haye, be it concrete or some other form that works better? Keeping in mind, we'll try to keep it aesthetically pleasing and the rest of it, but also trying to make it affordable for all parties concerned. What do we think?
I support it.
Okay.
Well, and I support it, Mr. Mayor, but the issue is, we've got rainy season coming.
Yeah.
So I know all the contractors in the valley that when I first moved here, it was like, we got to get this done before rainy season. So I just want to remind people, I do support it. I think that Cafe La Haye is a wonderful restaurant and it really is a destination restaurant. I support it, but we need to have some of these things in the back of our mind.
Yeah, and it's something we've addressed multiple times throughout the business subcommittee is how to do that, how to do coverings, and it is a major concern. If anybody else wants to weigh in on that, I apologize. I'm kind of taking up the space. Okay. The other thing that I think that we do, it was kind of lightly addressed during the presentation, but I'd like to get council feedback on is the possibility of grants or financial assistance to businesses to do this kind of work. Maybe that's for a separate discussion, but it was kind of brought up it was mentioned during the presentation. So I kind of just want to get like initial reactions on that. And, we still have some funding in our COVID response fund. And so I don't know what people are thinking about that.
So, Mayor, I can just chime in real quick. I think that we've started kind of internally with city staff and then externally through our 3 business organizations, kind of talking through what some of those options may be. It's such a challenging thing because, if you had asked any of us 2 weeks or a month ago, hey, where should we write a check? We would have given you one answer that maybe by now would already be obsolete. So we're really trying to make sure we come up with a plan that's fair and equitable. And I think that question is still floating and probably needs a little bit more due diligence before there's, final decisions are made. But I can assure you the needs are there. We just want to make sure from our perspective, both, wearing the business community hat and the, city contracting hat, that we're being smart and responsible and really maximizing the bang for the buck on any expenditure with that. But really appreciate the interest and the dedication there.
All right, that sounds good.
So, Mr. Mayor, can I make a comment also?
Sure.
Okay, so
Ms. Agrimonti.
Oh, thank you so much. What I think is important for all of us, especially coming from a nonprofit world, when you approach these businesses, 99.9% chance they never say no to help you out. So it really is a partnership. These restaurants, with all of the gifts, with the retailers, all of those things, they never say no in helping nonprofits here in the city. So that is part of my decision-making process, because it's just really, a partnership.
That's a very important point. All right. Anything else that we need here? Well, again, I just want to thank the team and thank all the work that staff's put in. I think you guys have been great representatives of the city and a great boon to our business community during this difficult time. And, every time we get on the meeting, it's like, whatever we can do to help businesses, that's what we will do. And we're getting direct feedback from the ground. And I think it's great. And so the synergy has been wonderful. And I just appreciate really all the hard work and outreach that you guys have been doing. It's been a heavy lift and an unexpected one, but we're managing it well, and I'm really proud of the team. And the city thanks you for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you.
All right, moving on.
Mr. Mayor, could we take like a 5-minute break?
You can have 6 minutes, Madeline, just for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll take a quick break and be back. I'm going to turn off my camera.
Rebecca, are you on still?
Yes.
I had to move into the house and turn something instead of my office, so I don't have my computer in front of me. My internet was going funky out there. So the PowerPoint for homeless I sent to you and LaTanya. Could one of you guys pull that PowerPoint up? If I didn't, I thought I sent it to you. If I didn't, then it's in the presentation drive on the network.
Yeah, I think you did.
So if one of you could put it through, I'm going to go pretty quickly through that.
Kathy, just one suggestion. One thing I do, if you're using a laptop for your internet and your phone, sometimes I turn off the Wi-Fi on my phone and it just gives a little more bandwidth to the laptop. It's just one less distraction for Wi-Fi.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Mark. Rebecca, so I'll assume you found it. Text me if you don't, because we're still live in the meeting. Thank you.
I've got it.
Okay, thank you.
Amy's here. Madeline's here. Kathy's here. Okay, Jeff's here, definitely. Rebecca's here. David's
But it sounds like romper room. I see Kathy. I see Jeff. What's wrong with me? I'm coronavirus crazy. I'm sorry, everybody.
I think my true career calling was to be on a kids' TV show. All right, we're ready to go? Okay, cool. So we'll go to item 6.3, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding on the roles and responsibilities of Home Sonoma County regarding homelessness in Sonoma County. City Manager, Kathy Gabriel.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Harvey and members of council. If I could ask the city clerk to put up the PowerPoint. This PowerPoint was in the council presentation, so I'm assuming you're going to have read it. I'm just going to hit a few of the high points for members of the public. So the action in front of you tonight is really to talk about efforts and changes that the county has done on homelessness governance over the last about 3 years. And some additional changes that the cities believe it's important to get the city council's perspectives on. And so we have some recommendations that, and this is coming to each of the cities. So next slide, please. So basically, every county is required to have what's called a continuum of care. And that's a federal requirement because there's a lot of federal funding that comes down for homelessness. Historically, the continuum of care, the organization that managed that those funding was consisted of the nonprofit service providers. And so the county made a decision a few years ago to shift the structure so that the nonprofit providers who were providing the service weren't also then deciding on the funding. And so there was a shift with the responsibility kind of coming back to a board. And so if we can move to the next slide, Rebecca. Just as a point of information, this shows homelessness. And again, the majority of homelessness from the 2019 count are in Santa Rosa, but you can see medium and small cities, which includes us, represent about the 17%, which is the same as the unincorporated areas. So small cities do add up on our homeless populations. Next slide. So basically in 2018, there was a new organization created to oversee homelessness within Sonoma County. It's called Home Sonoma County. And it was designed by a group of Santa Rosa and Board of Supervisors, and small cities did not have a seat at the table. And the service providers that have been on the board were then put on a technical advisory committee. Next slide. And so the role of the Home Sonoma County is basically to set the overall policy, to move forward the housing first, and we've talked about that a lot with the council, align and unify funding, and really kind of own homelessness issues for the county. Next slide. So this is the current governance structure, and you can see there's 9 members on the Leadership Council, and then there are these 25-member technical advisory committees. Each of those different committees was a Brown Act committee and required Brown Act staffing, et cetera. And those were comprised of a variety of the nonprofit board members, et cetera. And also some of the folks were individuals who had been homeless and have that lived experience to share as well. Next slide. So the current structure of this organization is the Supervisor Gordon and Hopkins are on it, and then there are 2 members of Santa Rosa, a member of Petaluma, and those are because those are cities over 50,000. So they were seen to have more responsibility. And then there were 4 other members in this 2-year committee on the technical advisory committee. One of them we asked to have Don Schwartz, who's the assistant city manager of Roanoke Park, kind of represent the small cities. And then he was brought forward to do that. But there is no formal representation by the small cities on this overall governance structure. Next slide. So there's been a kind of evolving conversation whether cities, smaller cities, and all cities should have the seat of the table. There does now seem to be support for a greater role for cities on what's called the Leadership Council, the organizing and voting body of that. And now the question though is, what does that look like? And so this is the conversation the county is under now, which is part of the reason we're bringing this to you, to have a formal voice back in that process. Next slide. So just a few things, again, for all the right reasons. On one level, the technical advisory committee has been difficult to staff for the county community development commission, both with a number of emergencies they've been dealing with COVID, staffing changes, and just the structure, I think, was pretty, it was a robust structure that's been difficult to maintain. But what it has meant is there's not been enough communication, and the nonprofit service providers are not being included as much in the process. The county is continuing to try to make improvements, and there is questions about the overall structure with public health and community development, and where homelessness will live in the long run. Next slide. So there still are kind of fragmented funding decisions made. You also have the ballot measure that's on, Measure O, which would provide additional funding for mental health and homeless services. That would require a 2/3 vote, and Sonoma County put that on. The county does have a new governance structure, and I'll show you that in a minute if you move to the next slide. So this is the new structure, and the structure would provide 2 representatives on what's called the Leadership Council. Again, this is the group that makes homelessness decisions for the county. So be 2 board members from the county, 2 reps from Petaluma, 2 from City of Santa Rosa, and then each city, including Sonoma, would have a representative at the table. And then there would also be 2 community members with lived experience. And then they're also recommending that the municipal advisory committees, those unincorporated sections, I assuming like the Springs, there is a municipal advisory commission. There would also be representatives from those municipal advisory commissions. And then there would be, those are some of the actions and things underneath. So this is kind of the current proposal that is brought forward at this point. Next slide. So the city managers across this county have been talking about this, and we've talked with the mayors and council members about this. And our recommendations back to our councils is that it's important to tell the county that there should be 1 seat per jurisdiction. If the council wants to talk about municipal advisory commissions, or whether it should be only elected representative, that's another kind of point if you wanted to speak on that. We also think it's time to look and maybe support an independent analysis and look at some best practice structures for who the lead agency should be. The lead agency in different counties is not always a county. Sometimes it's a nonprofit. There's different structures, and it may be a time to take a look at that and really look at whether we should have a new lead agency so that there really is shared responsibility and not completely all the implementation and follow through being done by county staff. If there is a new lead agency, there may be the need for future city funding to support that new lead agency. I cannot tell you what that would be or what that would look like. We don't know yet. The county is putting in about $200,000, I believe, of kind of general fund money on top of all the federal and state funding. And that does need to have a manageable advisory structure, and potentially looking at all the different funding so that maybe we could be more efficient and effective with greater collaboration. Next slide. So what we're asking, what the city manager is going to the council and really asking is to send a letter to the county and to leadership council outlining the kind of policy positions that are outlined on the front page of your staff report. And then also looking for a council member who might want to work with all the cities on an ad hoc committee to work on county homelessness issues and on some of this advocacy work that for the next, say, 6-9 months that as homelessness continues to be a focus. So with that, I know that was a quick overview, but there was more information in the staff report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. This is Madeline. Kathy, thank you so much for this. Number 3. I didn't, I've always wondered about the unincorporated area. I thought they were in the 30s, not, percentage wise. I didn't know that the cities, smaller cities, medium and smaller cities equal the unincorporated area. I always thought oh, they've got so much. Thank you for doing this. Now it's right there in front of me. I appreciate it. Thanks.
No, you're welcome. I think part of looking at where the clients are really speaks a little bit to, who should have a voice at the table, and a more formal voice. And again, I think the county has tried to do a lot of good work here. I think part of the city's perspective is if we really were working in greater cohesion and collaboration with all of our electeds, we could maybe, this is a tough issue, right? This is not easy. So, but we're only going to get better if we work kind of more collaboratively. And that's got to happen at a governance level and a funding level and a staffing level. So again, I think the county's worked hard in a lot of this area, but some of the models that could be out there could let us continue to work harder on this tough issue together.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of the frustration that's been brought up by other cities is decisions to put, to use hotels for these types of, for homeless individuals and things like that haven't been discussed with the city before. That's been frustration that's been expressed. And then some sort of negative vibes from, there's been discussions about or support or not support for different things that other cities have done to try to find places for homeless individuals. And there's just been some frustration that's been expressed by a number of the mayors from different cities about just kind of communication and just having a seat at the table. The one criticism I would have, or the one thing I think is really important, what I appreciate about the county's plan, is having people with lived experience on the board. I think that is critical, just so that we have that voice there, and that this is a very sensitive issue, and people that experience it are going to know more what the needs are than people who've never experienced it before. So I think that's a critical thing.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, could you repeat what you just said? That who had experience? I'm sorry.
So they have people that have previous experience being homeless that are on the board.
Oh, all right.
That's part of the county's proposal, and I'm not sure if that's part of the kind of what the city managers are working through with individuals from every city. And that's the thing that would be critical to me. So I don't know if Kathy has more insight on that.
My understanding is in order to have a continuum of care, there has to be, I don't know the number, but at least one or two members that have lived experience, individuals that were homeless, to actually sit and be on the policy board. So I think there are federal requirements for that. Which is part of the reason you see it. What wouldn't, under the structure of the municipal advisory commissions is kind of maybe a little more unique element that it has not been clearly not been seen here before.
And it's interesting that the health center actually has board members who are their patients, people who need that type of health care. So those people, well, whomever those patients are, they have a seat at the table as well. That makes sense.
I kind of like the idea of putting Max on there, frankly. I think that giving them more power and additional voices at the county level is really important. I know that there's just a feeling among unincorporated areas that they aren't listened to. And we're building there's more and more of these municipal advisory commissions. And the more that we give them at least cursory power where they feel like they have at least some influence, the more they'll be respected by their own communities. And the more they'll be seen as a true, real voice. And I think that's kind of important. So I don't know. I like the county structure. The thing I don't like about it is there's 18 members of the board, which I think it gets a little chaotic. But that's hard to mitigate because I do think Santa Rosa deserves a large voice there. And I do think the county deserves, at least 2 members.
So I guess, Mr. Mayor, I don't agree about the max. I just don't, because they're not accountable to anybody. They have their own cause to work on, but they're not accountable to anybody. So, I mean, I hope I guess they're working. They sound good, but that's just, it's just a cursory opinion. I don't know if there's any fact, because they're so new, but okay.
Yeah, I just think the more we drive legitimacy to them, the more legitimacy they'll have in a way. And I think, with the Springs MAC, they're doing really good work. But the community doesn't engage with them as much as they do with like a council and things like that. I think that the more that they're doing real things and involved in real projects, the more respect they'll have in their own communities. So there's just kind of like from that perspective, and then they understand where their communities are, and if there's a decision to put, obviously the supervisors understand their districts as well, but having that kind of on the ground direct experiences could be useful as far as like location and stuff. But
yeah, Harvey, I can appreciate what you're saying. I think the only other thing to think through a little bit though is if you've got 2 more to supervisors and you got 3 MAC, you've basically given 5 votes to the county. And so again, globally looking at that is now whether the MACs always would align with county numbers may or may not, and they may not always be in the same district too. I mean, it really depends, but I think that is just one question too, but I understand the point that you're making as well.
that's fair. They're appointees of the county supervisors too, which could be problematic. But I don't know, like people get very upset when the county has an outsized voice on different commissions and things. It's not a perspective that I always share because I think a lot of the money is going to flow through the county anyway. And so they're going to be the ones kind of arbitrating whether or not these ideas get approval. But they may be anyway. So I don't know. Anyway, do people have questions? I'm sorry, this is question period. No? All right. I see Kathy King with her hand raised. Let's go to public comment. And I'll open up public comment. So let's bring in Kathy. I appreciate you being here. It's great to have your voice on this issue. We can bring her into the fold here, or into the, what is this, the council Zoom, the panelists side of the Zoom. And Kathy, you're here. We just need you to unmute.
Okay, you should be hearing me.
I can hear you. Great.
Okay, yay.
Wonderful.
I've been waiting. Very interesting meeting tonight. You do all work hard and work on different things. So I just want to voice my opinion. I have been sitting on twice since the COVID started, twice a week, the community providers meeting that we have with the county, and have gone to several of the, report to the county on several commissions when we were asking for funds. And what has happened is that the county is not transparent, and the providers, if you read the remarks that they made, the providers are told what's happening after it happens. We're required things that have been extraordinary, 12-page paper to 12-page form to get someone into Sonoma State that was over 65 and medically compromised. And then once they got them in, they dispersed them, and none of the providers were told where they went. So I as much as you all want to have, somebody from the city or the council on that, you need to have providers. You cannot, the decisions that have been made by people that are well-meaning, but they may have just been on the job for a month. They have no experience working with homeless. They have no basis on which they're making their decisions on. And so people have been scattered to the winds and trying to get people into shelters. Now we've been really successful. Barbie Robinson has told us that we can bring people into Sonoma, into Los Quilicos. We've tried for months and months and months to get that decision. Again, they're overwhelmed, they're overworked, and they're understaffed. But to have a committee set up by all city officials, no offense to you all, is not going to work. You have to have providers at the table, because this is a complicated issue, and the cities are putting in their money, and the counties spent millions and millions of dollars, and the outcomes, I'm sorry to say, have not been good. So I just want to voice my opinion as someone who works within this community, and we're speaking for the people of Sonoma and the Valley, that we need to have some voice, and we have not had a voice. And you can read the what people say from COTS. Santa Rosa is overwhelmed. They have now set up, guess what? Safe parking. a safe parking. They said they'd never do it. They have safe parking, and they have safe parking for trailers. So things that were absolutely not allowed before are now allowed. And they're setting up tent encampments. But the cities are doing it, not the county. This is the problem. So I agree, you all have to work together, and we have to have some overview, some big committee to work on it. But please make sure that the providers have a voice. Thank you.
Thank you. There are other comments for public comment? Do you have any written public comment? I'll close that and bring it back here. And I do want to say, Kathy, I really appreciate having your voice on this issue. I think your perspective is well needed, and you are the expert more than anybody else here. So I greatly appreciate hearing your voice on this issue, for sure.
And Mayor Harvey, maybe if I could just follow up on one thing Kathy said. I think that's part of one of the recommendations here is, you know, we want a seat, each city to have a formal voice, but also really some kind of an independent analysis and review about what a lead agency could look like. And I think that also probably could be kind of a review and governance and structure and how there's just ways to maybe learn from other folks who have maybe done this in different ways. And that's part of the recommendation here, is to really, is this the best way to move forward and go look and learn about some best practices?
I have a comment.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor Hundley.
Yes. I totally hear Kathy King's concerns, and I think for there to be effective solutions, there absolutely has to be involved the people who understand services and provide them. I also think that the system that we've had with the county has not worked, and that we've tried for years to figure out ways to make what they're doing be effective for us. Other cities have done the same. So I am encouraged that that finally this idea of the cities sort of needing to band together, because you know, us being municipal governments, we're even closer to the ground than the counties are, even though they have large unincorporated areas that, you know, they should be caring for like cities. So I am encouraged by the movement this is going. Like, I don't think this sort of reconfiguration or this group sort of working on something like the solution's not going to come from them, but I think that it is going to be pointing to a direction of something that is going to be more successful, because what we have now has been not successful. And the model that I support is the one that is suggested by the cities, of just one from each city to start with. And because, I mean, so many projects, you have death by committee, where a committee gets too big and then you can't meet, and then there's sort of fractures. I also think the MACs are still coming into their selves as to what their objectives are and what they're doing, and how they're going to be appointed. So I like the suggestion. I think it's a great place to start, but I also see that there's going to be like so many things past it, but it's encouraging to me, because I've always found cities to be more pragmatic than the county, just because we have no choice but to just try to figure out and make it work. And so I think getting some more city people in there will be helpful, but also recognizing that this group is not going to have the answers, but especially with things like funding allocation, which has just been one of the most frustrating things to watch. You know, one of the exercises that gave me the most hope was when Madeline and I sat through the summer of meetings for all of the funding allocation discussions, and had a wonderful task force of meetings from all these stakeholders and providers, and it was just, it was beautiful. And then it just sort of wasn't even used in a way that was the most effective, and then it kind of disbanded, and that was the end of it. So it's a complex issue, and I think we're going to have to stumble our way through it, but we can't keep doing what we're doing now with the county. And I understand that they feel like they've been getting a lot of negative feedback about this, but I also think that we've been begging the county to be a good partner with us, because we're ready, willing, and able. And I just don't think that the county really knows how to work closely with people. So sort of creating a place where the objective is we're all going to work together and figure it out. So I support it. I suspect some of my colleagues are interested in being the representative, and I defer to especially the people who have been more involved in this issue recently. But in the event that there is not somebody, that I would do it.
Just one thing, Logan, maybe if I could ask Rebecca Barr to, Don Schwartz, who's been the rep, was listening in, so he knows the presentation, what was provided, but I just wanted to pull him up and say, when you're done with your conversations, if there was a question for Don, but also just to say thank you for his service, because he has been representing the small cities ably on that group.
And Kathy, before we do that, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to bring to your attention the grand jury report. I don't know if any of the council has seen it. I will bring it to City Hall. They can copy it and put it in your mailboxes or some other tech way they can send it to you. But Sonoma County has a homeless crisis. Is there a response plan? You have to read this, and it sort of addresses a lot of the things that our city manager has mentioned, and also Kathy King and Vice Mayor Hundley. It's a total failure all the way around. The money, I think there needs to be some type of an audit of the money that has been wasted on these programs that don't work. For one, I guess it's the Redondo Trail, when they tried to remove people, hundreds of people, I think, what was it, 60 went to LG? Well, how did that do it? Sonoma State, look how that ended up. These are millions of dollars. $3 million after the fires went to Catholic Charities. Did anybody audit them? I don't know. That was for counseling. There's millions of dollars that's being thrown all over, taxpayer dollars, and I really think somebody has to pay attention to that. And I think the grand jury did a great job at starting this. Okay.
Appreciate your comment.
I just want to comment. This was presented to the mayor's group of the mayors and council members by Don Schwartz multiple times. And he was really persistent and dogged with us, educating us about the need for small city representation. So it's really nice that Don is here. And just the counties, at that time that we voted as the mayors that we wanted 2 seats for small cities, and the county said, no, you could have none. And so I think it is important that we're taking the time to talk about the structure. I know in talking to the mayors of other cities, they've said that they just thought the total lack of coordination between cities, both with the county and with other cities, to come up with regional solutions was a huge problem. And just, which is an obvious point, which is like nobody has a solution, but what we're doing now is disjointed and ineffective. And so maybe this body will be a good start, or at least make some new connections of people working together who can start trying to resolve those issues. So thanks for the presentation, Kathy. And I support just having a representative from each city.
Other comments? I support change in structure, and if there's broad support from the councils for one from each city, then that's fine. I think it works fine for other groups like SCTA or CPA and Sonoma Clean Power and the rest of it. And I think those are really good organizations that get good work done. They do have some county seats as well. And I think there is a need just from a communication basis on how to do, how these things are working and what the county's planning and what the ideas are. I think there needs to be feedback. I mean, one instance we found out almost the day before that the county was getting rid of Sonoma State as a location, and where they were going, we had no idea, and it was a problem. So I think we do need some better representation here, and I think there needs to be some restructuring. And I appreciate the county's attempt to push out an idea that includes everybody. I agree with Vice Mayor Hundley's comments about just kind of having a board that's too big. 18 members is really big. That by committee could be a real problem there. So we got to move forward quickly, and happy for whoever wants to be the representative. I would support anybody that wanted to be on it. I know Miss Agrimonti and Vice Mayor Hundley have kind of been leading our homelessness response. So I feel like they would be either of them would be my top picks, just because they've had more experience in this matter. Yeah. So yeah, happy to write a letter or sign one in support of this, and appreciate council support, and I appreciate Kathy. I know you've been the lead with the city managers on this, or been one of the leads working hard on this. So I think that's great, and yeah, it's a good concern, and it's good movement forward, and appreciate the comments by Kathy King as well. The need for providers to be involved. I think having providers and people that have lived experience involved is critical to this process moving forward. So in addition to every city representative, there should be some involvement from people that have lived experience or that have experience being providers of this, because this is a highly difficult and highly sensitive issue that is it's tough to solve. And we need people with real operational knowledge to do it. And so whether that's from a staff base or that's from a subcommittee or directly on the board, I think I support directly on the board personally. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
And like Vice Mayor Hundley, I certainly would be willing to serve. I just think, I think it's so important. And I know that Dawn, having worked with you, you're going to enlighten us. So thank you, Dawn, because I'm glad you're leading this charge.
Great.
So council, maybe if, so the action, so just two other quick things. One, again, appreciate the appreciation to Don Schwartz. And I think I nominated him for this opportunity a couple of years ago, and with the managers, and really appreciate him stepping up and doing it, because he's been phenomenal. And also Kathy King, I mean, just the amount of work that her team has done and people that have been placed is really, it's heartwarming. So appreciate all of her work.
Kathy, it's the new underground.
Oh, okay.
Really, that's how we get people in. It's the new underground. No lanterns, but it's the new underground.
Well, you got to do what works. So a lot of good work. So at this point, council, if a motion maybe to authorize the mayor to sign a letter with the 5 policy points that were articulated. And then if there as one vote, and then maybe, or if you want to wrap it into a recommendation from one council member to sit on kind of this citywide ad hoc committee to focus on these issues.
Madeline, I would defer to you if your heart desires it, but
that would be great. Thank you so much for the support. I hope I just don't embarrass the family here.
I second the nomination, and you're a firecracker, Madeline. You get things done. So I think it'd be great for sure.
All right. So can we get a first and a second then?
So second. Roll call vote for Madeline nomination.
Councilmember Agrimonti.
Sorry, let's do Madeline nomination and the policy letter.
And the policy letter? Yeah, okay, great.
Aye.
Councilmember Vice Mayor Hundley.
Aye.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye.
He's not the mayor, Rebecca. How dare you?
It's Mayor Harrington Emeritus. Thank you very much.
I know I don't have my gavel or my sign, but I'm still the mayor.
Step your top.
I will say yes. Thank you. I appreciate it very much.
401.
Thank you. Oh, great. All right, awesome. We're on to item 6.4.
Bye, Dawn.
Bye, Dawn.
Thank you, Dawn.
Bye, Kathy. Thank you.
Welcome.
Item 6.4, discussion, consideration, and possible action on process for city manager recruitment, including authorizing the city manager to issue a RFP for professional services recruitment services. City manager.
Great. Mayor Harvey and council. So I'm going to just do a very high level overview. The staff report, I think, lays out kind of the process. This action in front of you is to provide kind of an overview of kind of how the typical process works. So as you all know, I'm going to be retiring the end of December and going to go do consulting and spend some time with my family. And one of my most important things I want to do during this time is to transition and support all of you to make sure you've got a good continuing team to move things forward. So one of the things is appointment of an interim city manager, and we did have a closed session conversation on that today. And so the next piece kind of the process is looking at the process of hiring. So typically, maybe if you, typically what a council does is they move forward and they try to hire a recruiter. Some organizations are big enough you can do this in-house, we're not. And so then you can typically use hire an outside recruitment firm. There are a number of firms, this is what they do, from hiring department heads to hiring city managers. They have networks, they know the people, they know where to advertise, and then can do the headhunting. Now, council, you all decide what your candidate profile is, and you'll have those conversations in closed session, and you can get some community input in open session as well. But you typically do that once you've got your recruiter on board, because you want to be clear about what you're looking for, and then your recruiter is going to put that up and draft it into a recruitment brochure and help go do the advertising and marketing based on what you are looking for in your next executive. So there are some other things. One of the key things before you can go out and market, you really have to define what you're looking for in that candidate profile. You may also want to look at the compensation package, because that will be something that you're putting out there, and looking kind of at the salary level as part of that recruitment. There's also the timeline. So we've got a council election. You're going to have one new council member coming in January. And so probably wanting, and I think naturally the way the process is laid out, kind of the draft timeline I put in the staff report, the decision-making process is going to be in front of the new council, not the current council, which is appropriate, because the new council, the manager will be serving at the pleasure of the new council, and that manager will want to know who the current council is, and you and the current council making that decision together. So I think that timing all works. Another decision you typically make is the scope. Is it a California-based recruitment, a West Coast recruitment, or a national recruitment? Those are things that affect both cost and overall scope as well. So on the staff report has kind of a typical process laid out in terms of hiring a recruiter, and then that recruiter would spend some time with all of you in really learning and listening of what you want, because again, they were working for you. And then you typically are going to want to be open for anywhere from 30 to 60 days. You could do it over the holidays, be open a little longer, that recruitment period and that advertising when someone is turning in that application. There's typically at least 1 or 2 sets of interviews that are conducted. And then you are doing reference checks. The recruiter typically is doing some reference checks, some background even before you see those first candidates. So they've done some pre-screening for you. And I think that's really important. I will also say it's very important to do really thorough background checks. And Jeff and I know this from past experiences, from hiring department heads and other city managers, is just the background check process is important. So making sure that how that's going to work as well.
Kathy,
and then it takes some, yeah.
Kathy, just a quick question. What is your opinion on council members going to the city and talking to people in the city of where the finalist is coming from before an offer is made?
I don't know. I've heard that talked about. I've never seen it actually be done. I think it's a little awkward because, again, typically if you're hiring someone who's already a city manager somewhere else, the confidentiality of that is, I think, incredibly awkward. What you don't want to do is have a final candidate that you really like, and then you jeopardize something, or they get uncomfortable and they say, yeah, or, and again, the way things get communicated, I just think it's a kind of a dicier thing. You're building trust with a candidate. And I think there's ways to do thorough backgrounds. And maybe maybe you could hire the recruiter or one person to go. I just would be a little careful. I think there's some downside risk.
Yeah, thank you.
And then it does take time to negotiate a contract. And then depending on where that person, if they're local or they have to move, that takes some time. So the timeline I've laid out for you could go faster, but it could be the summer before you've got a new permanent manager in place. I will tell you, there's a tension between going too fast and feeling rushed and maybe making a wrong decision and going too slow and taking too long. But I think a good recruiter can help you move along, and they really will help you as a guide because they've done this lots. So one of the questions, the two real questions for council for you to, any general direction you want to give Jeff and I on kind of looking at this recruitment for you. Two, if there's, I did put together a draft RFP that we could email out to some of the recruiting firms. I think Jeff and I could, based on it depends on how you want to do this. If you want to have a subcommittee of council review the proposals, will come back in and then bring a group back to the full council if you want to look at all of them. Again, the proposals themselves are, will be somewhat tailored, but firms do this all the time. They can respond pretty quickly to you. So I think we could put it out for 3 weeks and get them back, and then you'd have some responses. And Jeff and I also have some experience with some of these firms that we can also provide and have an ad hoc. So, again, it's a question of how much process did the council want. If you all want to be involved, that's fine. You can definitely do it that way. It will take you a little longer versus you've also gotten comfortable in some things using some ad hocs to help move some things along. So it really is an overall question on the recruiter and what you want to do. Again, because the candidate profile and all the rest of that stuff, you would be working through with the recruiter when they come on board. So I'm happy to answer any questions or take any direction on this from the council.
Questions from council? All right, seeing none, I'll go ahead and bring it up. Public comment. Seeing no one rise for public comment, we'll go ahead and get back. No shocks there. We're getting later in the meeting. All right, comments from council.
I like the ad hoc committee. I think ad hoc committees have worked and bring back information to the council. I think but it would be the council's suggestion. If we look at this plan, I think it was number 2, that there be names thrown into into a hat. So I like that idea. I'm not necessarily saying I'd like to serve on it, but I like the idea that the scouts go out, council members go out and look. I think it would be tough. I don't know. I mean, I like the headhunter places. I think that makes sense because they already have this down. So I don't know. Those are just my comments. I don't even know how I feel.
Apologize.
Well, I agree that when we were recruiting after Carol Giovanato retired, that working with the recruiter was really enlightening, not only from the sort of going out and doing the work and bringing people in, but then guiding us through the interview process. So I'll certainly be supporting having an RFP to look at recruiters for our next city manager.
Yeah. Amy?
Yeah, I think an RFP is a good idea. There's a lot we could talk about later about what we're looking for, and trying to find somebody who obviously can live near the town of Sonoma, which is a difficult task in and of itself. So yeah, I think it's good.
Yep, I totally support RFP. I think it's the right way to go. We need people with experience that are going to find qualified candidates with experience. They have the database and the people, and they know how to do this. And this is something I've never done before, so it's not something I can sit here and say we need an RFP to do this and do this right. So, yep, it's the way to do it.
So,
need a-
I'm sorry.
Do we need a vote?
Jeff's nodding.
Just not.
Oh, now he's doing a shake.
So here's
It
one.
sounds like we have 3 of the 4 are supportive of an RFP, and that I think is enough direction for Kathy to send out the RFPs. When she gets them back, maybe at that point, she can come to the council and you can make a decision about having an ad hoc committee to review them and help her go through the selection of the proposers.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess my recommendation would be to pick an ad hoc now. And because otherwise, I mean, again, I could have culled this down to about 5 firms. If the list is longer, as I looked at different RFPs, and again, the list right now, I think, let me look at it, sorry, on the back of the RFP, there were about 10 firms on this. There's probably 5 I've worked with closely and have experience with that, I think you could put on that list that are on this list that you could narrow if you wanted. My thought is you put it out, but then you have an ad hoc who could review whatever applications we get. Again, some people are too busy and they won't put in based on the timing. That happens sometimes. I think the other piece is because our process, if the timeline council's got that you're looking to have someone hired by summer, we'd want to communicate that out because that's not a hyper fast process. That actually may allow some folks to put in and be interested, even though they may have a lot of clients right now, they may be okay in 2 months. And so there's always the pipeline question that consultants are trying to figure out because I want to make sure that they can deliver for the clients they have. So the timing is an important question of folks. So if we had an ad hoc, we get some of these back, the ad hoc could help staff do a review, and then maybe the top 3 are brought forward to council. And if council wants to interview, because again, you typically there's an individual point person, as you all know, you're going to work with. That's the preference for council too. So, or staff could try to weed it and do that and then bring it back to all of you.
Madeline, did you mean an ad hoc for the selection of the recruiter or an ad hoc after the recruiter was selected?
I don't know. Maybe I never even thought that far.
I thought we were going to have an ad hoc, not really on the selection of the recruiter, but post selection. That's what I had imagined.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I'm open to whatever else.
I think I agree with that.
This is really, a question of how deep does council want to get in? Some councils want to interview the top 3 firms themselves. They want to do a Zoom, they want to meet the recruiter, then they want to ask some questions. Other councils say, staff, you work with these folks all the time. Maybe there's just two members who are going to interview and bring back a recommendation. Other councils want to interview everyone. So again, it's an issue of kind of how deep do you want to dive? Again, this is your hiring process. I'm happy to help in any way and happy to try to streamline. Because again, too much process does take time.
Amy, I'm comfortable with the like the RFP for the recruiter to be handled by staff. I mean, that takes a lot of time if you're not comfortable with that. But
I think it's okay. I guess, I just would say, like I've been up since 6 a.m. and it's 9:30 at night. So I'm having a difficult time deciding anything other than, are we going to send the RFP out or not? But if we're going to come up with an elaborate process and subcommittees, I honestly do not have the bandwidth to have that discussion this late in the evening. That's the truth of it. So I am totally on board with doing an RFP, but how those will get reviewed and who will look at it and what the timeline is,
what do we just have staff?
I recommend that the staff bring us the top 3 and we decided.
Yeah, I like that.
Great. Perfect.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly. Let's do it. Let's go to bed.
Okay. That'd be great. That's helpful, and we can do that, and I think we have direction without needing a formal vote.
Beautiful.
Great.
All right. Community reports? None? All right, awesome. City manager comments or reports?
None tonight, thank you.
Jeff Walter, what you got for us?
I have nothing for you tonight.
Oh, that's for you. All right.
No
great.
bandwidth left.
No, we're at the end of bandwidth. All right.
So I will bring the grand jury report for it to be disseminated to the council. Is it easy to pick it? I don't know how anybody does this. Maybe she can go online and get the report. I have no idea, but I think the council members would be interested in looking at this.
I would be interested in that. So if it's either.
Madeline, was that in the, we got mailed a whole piece. Anyway,
Yeah.
we can find it online.
Oh, all right. It's
if we can't find it on
grand jury 2019-2020. Do you want me to drop it off for her to look at?
I think we can, if we can't find it online, we'll save you, we'll have you bring it down if we can't find it. I think we can find it online, and I may actually have been mailed a copy as well.
Have you seen it, Kathy?
I got a whole bunch. There were like 12 different reports from them, including, and I've not gone through it all yet.
I don't know if you could read it into an audiobook and then send it to
I'll send you the cliff note.
my ideal. So.
Madeline, we'll ask you for it if we need you to bring it by, but we'll see. We should be able to find it electronically, and then we can email it out to folks.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Turned.
Bye. Bye. All my iPads are dead right now. Jeez. Go. Good night.
Funniest member of council every time.